24 video games, 16 contests, one winner, an all-out knockdown video game brawl. This is the Avocado Gamescast Tournament.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 62 of the Avocado Gamescast, the Avocado Gamescast Tournament. I'm your host, Merve, and today I'm joined by Lovely Bones, who organized this tournament.
Hi.
Demyx, who organized previous video game tournaments at the Avocado.
Hi, thanks for having me.
And the new guy. Everyone, please give a warm welcome to DW.
Hello, thanks for having me.
You're both very welcome, as always.
So how y'all doing?
I'm fine. I'm still thinking about the fact that I pitched this 7 months ago and it's only now happening. Which,
Yeah,
like you didn't want to do it in December, and that was perfectly reasonable. And then most of the delays were my own fault, so I'm mostly just beating myself up. But I wanted to talk about that.
That's fine. This is like bureaucracy, modern bureaucracy. Everything takes like 5 months longer than you think it's gonna take.
Yeah.
Y'all have worked in an office before. You know what it's like.
I like to think of it as like trying to schedule literally any social occasion.
Oh yeah,
Yep.
that's true.
Yeah,
Like,
anything involving
oh.
more than 3 people is doomed to get pushed back months and months.
Oh yeah, you can't do Wednesday? Okay, I'll just see you again in like 2 years.
Yeah, there's so many times when especially with some of my acquaintances, like not like you'll always find like time for your closest friends, but like friendly acquaintances, you just keep pushing back those lunch dates and those coffees for like months.
One of my
Go ahead.
one of my oldest closest friends, someone who I've known since I was like 6. He and I were in Houston just a week off from each other. He was there a week before I was, and we were very irritated that we missed each other by that close.
Yeah, that happens a lot.
unfortunate.
Like, I go back home to Canada not that regularly, and a lot of my close friends, even from university, live in my hometown, and we still just like the only time we ever like quote unquote see each other is just like Skyping.
Yeah, adulthood is exhausting.
Yeah,
It is.
geography, man, a lot of pain in the
Yeah.
ass.
Anyway,
Anyway, so we have a tournament
Yes.
to go through today. We have 24 games from 2019 that are going to compete in a tournament of champions. So, Bones, why don't you explain how you constructed the bracket and how this whole thing got organized?
yeah. So I took every single person who either participated in the pits in late 2019 or otherwise submitted top 3 games. Like you, me, and Kappa all gave ones when we did the December Gamescast episode, and Wolfman just sent one directly to me because we're friends like that. Um, and so I took every single person's ranking as a collective. And from that, I built a system that was determined by the total number of people that include a given game, and then where in their list that game is placed. And I determined our top 24 games from that before doing several randomized assignments into each of our series of rounds.
Yeah, so it's so from that we've got a 24 game bracket. The games did all have a seed, but they were kind of randomly seeded into groups. And just FYI for our listeners, the Pits is the Avocado's year-end award show where we vote on
Oh,
our
yes.
favorite movies, music, books, etc. of the year. Also games, for some reason. We also do games.
Also,
Also,
Crazy.
they're like a little
Crazy
asterisk
that
at
we-
the end.
Crazy that we include games in it. I mean, they're not art.
Yeah.
Everyone knows
Boys,
this.
Yeah, games are games. So here's the format. The first round will consist of 8 3-game matchups, and each matchup will spend roughly 5, maybe 6 minutes discussing the games. At the end of whatever time we spend discussing, we'll take a vote on the best game of the matchup. The winner will move on to the next round, the quarterfinals, consisting of 4 two-game matchups. Winners from that round move on to the semis. The semifinal losers will be paired in a bronze medal match. Bronze medal match, the most important match of any tournament. And the semifinal winners will face each other in the finals. The winner of the final match will be crowned the Avocado Gamescast's kinda official best game of 2019. Yes, the kinda official is an official part of the title. So we've posted the bracket for you to follow along with in the official, not kinda official, actually official Linkdump. So you'll be able to keep track of your favorite games, and you can get mad when we inevitably vote them out of the competition. Because we are going to be ruthless today.
Yeah.
I apologize for cutting in there. Obviously third place is the most important position, really.
It's the place where you just make it onto the podium by the skin of your teeth.
Yeah, I honestly think that's in some ways more of an accomplishment. You still have to get really far to get that close, So I wanted to read a couple things first. I talked to you about this ahead of time. There's an honorable mentions list also sourced from the pits voting.
All right, let's hear the honorable mentions before we get into the brackets.
Yes. So, in recognition of our community's appreciation for these games and that popularity itself does not determine a work's quality, even though I did use it as a determining factor here just because it made sense. Here are 24 honorable mentions straight from y'all at home. Wilmot's Warehouse, Telling Lies, Life is Strange 2, Slay the Spire, Trails of Cold Steel 3, Atelier Ryza, and I apologize if I butcher any of the Japanese names, Devil May Cry 5, Eliza, My Friend Pedro, Hypnospace Outlaw, Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, Erica, Oxygen Not Included, Battlegrounds 3, Jump Force, Ring Fit Adventure, Shovel Knight King of Cards, Observation, After Party, Fate Extella Link, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, Dauntless, and Halo Reach for PC, which was really not a 2019 game, but it was Kappa's idea, so we included it. We gotta respect the editor.
And we also it did come out for PC in 2019, but it is basically the same game as it was on Xbox.
Just a port. I also want to just emphasize quickly, and this will be a very quick statement. What you're listening to today is truly just, I know we're all adults and we understand this, but just to say this, just the friendly opinions and debates and judgments of a handful of people. This is in no way supposed to be like the official ranking of the avocado, whatever that could possibly be. We're not telling anyone what to think.
That's why it's kind of official.
Exactly. I'm not going to try and take it personally when anything that I like gets eliminated. I encourage the same for our listeners at home. And comparing these completely different kinds of games is arbitrary anyway. So it truly is just for fun.
Exactly. Really, this is just an excuse to turn the podcast into an anime and do a tournament arc. Get some shonen anime energy in here.
This is shooting exams, and the sand village of, I don't know, Kingdom Hearts 3 is going to invade and attack and kill everyone.
Awesome.
Yeah, y'all are out-weebing me right now. I have no idea what you're referencing, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. It's anime. It doesn't have to make sense.
That's so true.
Naruto is extremely mainstream as a reference point, man, but I get it.
I've seen 0 seconds of Naruto.
Shonen is very off-putting. I get it.
Sorry. Okay. Let me correct myself. I've seen 0 seconds of Boruto's dad.
Oh, wow. Boruto's dad.
Yeah, sorry, that's the oldest meme.
That's a thing.
Yeah, that's the meme.
That is the meme.
When they did the spin-off about his son, everyone just calls Naruto Boruto's dad now. And there's a great thing where there's a scene in Boruto where old Naruto is at like the bar and he's saying next to us like the phantom memory of the standard Naruto model from the original show, and some people were like earnestly, viewers were asking, did Naruto have a son who died before Boruto? They didn't get that was supposed to be child Naruto, and then Naruto was a show that had existed for decades prior. This is way too much anime for a video games tournament.
That is true. So without further ado, let's get started and meet the competitors in match number 1. Match number 1 is Control versus Sekiro Shadows Die Twice versus Ape Out. So, Control, developed by Remedy Entertainment, published by 505 Games, available on Windows, PS4, and Xbox One. It's a third-person shooter, Metroidvania, set in the oldest house, a mysterious, brutalist building run by a government agency called the Federal Bureau of Control. It's heavily inspired by paranormal fiction, stuff like X-Files, Fringe, and the SCP Wiki, if you're familiar with that. Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, developed by From Software, published by Activision. Platforms it's available for: Windows, PS4, and Xbox One. It's an action-adventure, Souls-like game, as most games developed by From Software are, set during the Japanese Sengoku period. You get to play as a shinobi. There's a heavy emphasis on stealth and parrying in hand-to-hand combat. By hand-to-hand, I mean sword-to-sword combat. And finally, Ape Out, developed almost single-handedly by a person by the name of Gabe Kuzio, published by Devolver Digital, available on Windows and Nintendo Switch. It's a top-down beat-em-up. It's very similar to Hotline Miami, except for instead of being a man with a gun, you're a gorilla. It's well known for its jazzy soundtrack and its minimalist art style.
And Bennett Foddy of Getting Over It and Co-op also worked on some of the art for Ape Out as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Gotta love Bennett Foddy, the king of Fumblecore. All right. 6 minutes on the clock. Boom. Let's debate.
Okay, so I'll fight pretty hard for Ape Out here. I really love that game. Like, more than Control. And I do like Control a lot.
What makes it so special? Sell me on it.
Okay,
I mean, you get to play as an ape and hit things. That's pretty special.
Sure, but you could do that in Donkey Kong.
I'll say, well, I would say Ape Out like does a lot of strictly with like iterating on its core gameplay, which is like that you navigate the level, you smash enemies into the wall and watch them blood splode, and you avoid damage wherever possible. Like it's like the iteration is more in level design, where there is a semi-procedural element of randomizing the layout on a given run, like when you die and start over, and within that, and then with like on a like moving onto another level, there's just a lot of excitement in navigating your obstacles and figuring out
roguelike-ish elements almost.
Yes, there are roguelike elements.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
Yes,
Okay.
I know.
So that
I know
kind
those are
of
popular.
augments the Hotline Miami formula.
Also, like one of my favorite beats, like just narrative beats in a game this year, was when I thought I got into the end of the game where the first set of levels is an ape in like an animal, like a product testing facility with animal testing, and at the very end I get out of the building and I'm in the jungle and I'm back home, and I found that very striking. And then I was like, oh, there's a totally new story now. I'm just another ape escaping in a totally different scenario, and I found that really exciting and creative. And they do a lot of experimentation with that. Like you're in an office building at one point, you jump from like Navy ships and then onto the streets of the pier that the Navy ships are heading towards.
So
yeah.
Wait, is it like the jungle is itself a lab, like the original Far Cry?
No, like reaching the jungle was the victory. It was the end of the story, and now you're just a completely different ape. And yeah, like I thought the jungle might be its own level where you're like liberating other apes, but no, you just start a completely new story, and the end point differs because not all of them are necessarily near a jungle.
Okay.
Literally, one of them ends with the ape getting hit by a car. Oh yeah, then the ending of the game is actually what I had imagined earlier, which is that you're in a zoo and you get to break the enclosures of all the other animals, so you get to watch all the other animals rampage alongside you. It's incredibly satisfying.
It does sound satisfying to get revenge on your human masters. So I'm gonna shill for Control because I think it is it's not just one of my favorite games of last year, although I ended up completing it in early 2020. It's a game that kind of restored my faith in like major developers to make single player games that I actually care about. Like I played like the game I played just before that was Call of Duty Modern Warfare, which
Ooh.
I did not like at all. So getting to play Control right after kind of restored my faith that, oh yeah, you can just make a really solid third person shooter that's just fun to play. It's fun to run around and use supernatural powers to lob shit at supernatural enemies.
You get to throw enemies' bodies at other enemies.
Oh yeah,
That's like
it's
that's something you
fantastic.
get in like hour 2. It's fantastic.
When you get to float around and stuff like that, and then
Yeah.
launch shit.
Yeah,
Yeah, the superpowers feel really good generally. That's one of its strengths, for sure.
When I
floating like.
was
Go ahead. Sorry.
when I was reading about this game, I saw you get to control the enemies and make them fight
Yeah.
for you. Is that a mechanic?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How does
that is
that
a
work?
mechanic.
Is that
You-
cool?
You have to get someone. Sorry, you have to get someone to very low health, and then you like hold
Okay.
the button for a few seconds, and that will just like automatically turn their AI to recognize you as a friend and all the enemies as enemies.
Oh,
Like
okay.
you're not like directly controlling them. It's the AI kicking in. Just
Mhm.
yeah. Sorry.
It's a useful mechanic though.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, totally.
Yeah, I've
Very good
used
for
it
crowd control.
you end up using it quite a bit, like especially in the end game where you just get like overwhelmed by swarms of enemies.
Mhm.
It's really helpful to just like pick off a couple of the lower level mooks and then get them to fight for you. In the last like 40 seconds, we should probably talk about Sekiro. Anyone willing to say a few things about Sekiro and what you enjoyed about it if you played it?
Yeah, sure. So Sekiro is more of an action game compared to like the other FromSoft titles, and it relies more on like a singular playstyle over different weapons. And one of the things that's unique about it is sort of the movement it gets. Like you can jump on rooftops and sneak up on someone, or throw like a smoke, like a flare, like a firecracker, and that'll stun enemies. And it's very much just about the sword on sword combat, which can kind of get repetitive after a while. And if you're not used to it, then it can kind of be frustrating. But for the little bit when it starts, it's like it's can be pretty fun, even if I don't enjoy it compared to like other Souls games like the first Dark Souls or Bloodborne, in my
Mhm.
opinion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
as someone who really got into FromSoft games last year but hasn't tried Sekiro yet, what I can say from a distance is that it continues to have very creative scenario design, like the other games.
Oh yeah,
They may be frustrating scenarios, but they're definitely creative. Like how you have to fight through. I forget the name of the actual species, but they're like snow macaques.
yeah,
The ones who live in the hot springs. You
yeah.
have to fight through an army of snow macaques in a Japanese like hot spring area, and at the end there's a giant ape that
Yeah,
you
The
have to
the
giant
fight.
ape
But
is
Guardian
that
Ape.
the
yeah,
Guardian Ape is definitely the most, I guess, the most fun I've had playing that game, because it's
and
just like
then when you kill the giant guardian ape, you cut its head off, and then it gets back up and it's holding its head in one hand and a sword in the other.
oh my god, when I beat it, I just took a second to breathe and put my controller down, and then it
Yeah.
got back up. I was like, oh no.
Yeah, I was not happy. I was like, when that happened, I was like,
When I
stay
heard
down.
about that, I thought that was the coolest thing ever.
Yeah. All right, so 6 minutes are up. Let's take a vote. Who's voting for Control? No one. Who's voting for Sekiro?
I will, because I played that and beat Control just like last week, so it's still on my. So it's very recent for me.
All right, and who's voting for Ape Out?
I am.
And Demyx, are you abstaining?
I haven't played any of these. I find
currently
Control the
it's
most interesting, but that would just kind of tie it up, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But then I get to vote.
This
if
is
you
already
vote.
currently a 1-to-1 tie, and it would otherwise be a
That's true.
1-to-1-to-1 tie.
Yeah, I think Control sounds the most interesting of these with different mechanics and everything.
All right, I gotta vote for Control then. Sorry,
I
Athos.
really like Control, but I guess I'll get into my criticisms of it in a later round.
All right.
Merve
So
is happy Sekiro's gone.
Oh, Sekiro was doomed.
Yeah.
yeah,
I
sorry Sekiro, you had a good
Yeah.
run.
Yeah, it's a. I get that it's an alienating property, quote unquote.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, let's move on to match number 2, which is Total War 3 Kingdoms versus Baba Is You versus the remake of The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening. So, Total War 3 Kingdoms, developed by Creative Assembly, published by Sega, available for Windows, Mac, and Linux. It's a turn-based strategy real-time tactics game set in the Three Kingdoms period of ancient China. Features both a fictionalized mode based on the novel Romance of the Three Kingdoms and a more realistic mode based on the historical text, the records of the Three Kingdoms. Then there's Baba Is You, developed by R.V. Tekari and under the pseudonym of Hempuli, also published, self-published. Available for Windows, Mac, Linux, and Nintendo Switch. It's a block-pushing puzzle game. The main mechanic involves pushing around word blocks that create rules to manipulate the environment. For instance, if you push around a blocks to make the sentence flower is empty, then the flower will disappear from the screen. It's also fiendishly difficult. And The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening, developed by Grezzo, published by Nintendo, available on the Switch. It's a top-down action-adventure RPG. It's the remake of the 1993 Game Boy Classic, and it features toy-like designs and a tilt-shift aesthetic. All right.
Okay, sorry. So two people are responsible for Total War being in this whole discussion, and neither of them are here today, unfortunately. But I respect their opinions. Is all I can say. Like, that's literally all we can really say.
Yeah, I haven't played it. Sorry.
All right, 6 minutes on the clock. Let's do this.
Yeah. Demyx, you go ahead.
Sure. The only one of these I played is Link's Awakening. However, I was actually planning to vote for Baba Is You because I think it's a lot more interesting. I just didn't have time to get around to it. Like, the mechanic is really fascinating. I really like the minimalist art style. I think it's cool. Like, Link's Awakening is great. It was fun. And the tilt shift art style is really nice, but it's hard to vote for a remake over a really kind of original idea.
That's fair. I truly love Link's Awakening. It was my third top-down Zelda, and it was the first I could say I completely unambiguously enjoyed. I think it really, I'm sure like a lot of the other intervening games up to it like helped refine that gameplay further. But it's it makes the top-down style of mechanics really really fine and refined, and the story is phenomenal. And like by redeveloping its control scheme for a console with more than 2 buttons, it is significantly less like intermittently irritating in the way those older top downs, and especially the original Link's Awakening as a Game Boy game was. That being said, the art style is phenomenal, and the narrative is phenomenal, and all this stuff. I wrote like almost 2,000 words about why the story of Legend of Link's Awakening is so good, so I recommend people read that. But I'm still also going to vote for Baba Is You. Baba Is You is just a testament to legitimate, true, original genius design.
What I will say about Link's Awakening is I found it super interesting that they used elements from like the Mario franchise in there, like chain chomps.
Yeah.
Around.
That's from the original game.
Okay.
Yeah, like it was the idea from the developers. I think probably especially Koizumi, because he was like kind of the main like creative force for that one. Using Mario characters was to really hammer home the idea of the surrealism of it, that this was not a traditional or in any way like familiar Zelda world as was starting to be codified by the two NES games and Link to the Past. Like, yeah, it's just supposed to make you feel like uncomfortable and like that this is a true unknown setting, and that gets into the broader themes of like existentialism and like dream reality.
And tears, lots of tears.
Yes, sadness.
Yeah, and one of the things that I love about Link's Awakening, the remake, is that we are now blessed with an orchestral version of the soundtrack.
Holy shit, the score is phenomenal.
Yeah.
The score is amazing, and it was already amazing, but the Game Boy is very limited.
Yeah.
So having this new version of the score, I really enjoy.
Yeah, Link's Awakening is an undeniable achievement of presentation. I would still say that like my single favorite aspect of it is the narrative, and that's the thing that is the least updated by its own nature. Although I do think the toyetic art style really benefits the themes of the narrative, I would argue. Like the experience of artificiality as an existential quality.
Yeah.
to keep it vague.
I also enjoyed sort of the overworld a lot. Like, it feels very puzzle boxy and like close and like just jam packed secrets compared to like.
Sorry. It's a really great overworld, and I like overworlds have been my favorite part of Zelda so far. Generally, I'm very dungeon agnostic. Sorry, Demyx. I could really take or leave them, but
in the remaining 2 minutes, you should probably say something about Total War and Baba Is You.
Yes. You said play about Baba.
Yeah, I haven't played Total War, so I can't say much about it. Everything I've been hearing is that it's almost kind of like a return to form for the series, which has had a few shaky entries of late. So if you're a fan of the franchise, this is probably something you might want to check out. For Baba Is You, like you said, it's one of the most innovative titles I've played in years. But not only that, it keeps innovating even beyond the original central mechanic, and very late in the game throws new mechanics into the mix that fit perfectly well with everything that has come so far. And they're a logical extension, but they're also super clever in and of themselves.
Yeah, it's phenomenal at continuing to innovate and iterate over somehow dozens of hours, but at the same time, like just going back to that single starting core mechanic of like, oh, there's a wall in my way, but I can make it so I'm the wall and the wall is moving, and that's how I reach the win position. and just endless possibilities of creativity. Also, it's really good for playing like with two or more people, like as a like brainstorming project of bouncing ideas off each other on the harder levels. Very, very good for me and my girlfriend.
All right. So that's down 6 minutes down. Let's take a vote. So who's voting for Total War 3 Kingdoms?
I'm really sorry, Total War. You sound great.
Yeah.
We wish we'd played you. Who's voting for Baba Is You?
I am.
I think I am.
And who's voting for Zelda?
I'll vote for it. Yeah.
All right. Looks like Baba Is You has come out on top. Sorry, Total War and Legend of Zelda. Sure, you're both great. Too bad I didn't play you last year.
Yeah. Maybe we'll do a strategy games of the decade thing at some point, and that could be Total War's time to shine.
Yeah, I wish I'd played more strategy games in the past, decade. Because the last time I played strategy games at all, really, was when I was a teenager. And it's been a while since I've been a teenager, unfortunately.
Same.
Anyway, let us move on to match number 3, which is Disco Elysium versus Outer Wilds. Not the Outer Worlds. Outer Wilds. Very important distinction. And
That's
Death
so
Stranding.
confusing.
We made that mistake so much last year, and I feel really bad in hindsight.
To be fair, I think everyone made that mistake.
Yeah, but I went about it in a way that was very dismissive of Outer Wilds, and now I've played it a lot this week, and I think it's a fucking masterpiece. But that's foreshadowing, I guess. Please continue.
All right. So let's meet our contestants. Disco Elysium was developed by Zaum, Z-A-U-M. I don't know how you say it. Zaum is what I'm going to call them. And it was developed for Windows, although there are versions for other platforms on the way. It's presented like an isometric RPG, but instead of combat, everything's based on dialogue abilities. It's set in an alternate history in the fictional European city of Revachol. You play as a detective on a murder case who suffers from amnesia. And the amnesia is drug and alcohol abuse, just in case you're wondering what kind of game this was. Outer Wilds, developed by Mobius Digital, published by Annapurna Interactive, available on Windows, PS4, and Xbox One. It's an action-adventure, puzzle, survival, platformer, groundhog game, I guess you could call it. The game's on a 22-minute cycle. In each iteration, the player solves puzzles that give them information about how to solve other puzzles or eventually complete the game. And finally, there's Death Stranding, which was developed by Kojima Productions and published by Sony Interactive Entertainment, available on PS4. It's a third-person stealth action open world game with fumble core elements. I like to call it a literal walking simulator. You play as a porter in a post-apocalyptic United States who delivers packages to isolated preppers. It features a celebrity cast, including Norman Reedus, Lea Seydoux, and Mads Mikkelsen, among others. All right. Those are our contestants. What do y'all think of them?
Can I go first?
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
you're the most qualified to talk about Disco Elysium, so please feel free.
Okay, so I played Disco Elysium in January, and so it wasn't on my 2019 games list. But after playing it, it's definitely probably number 1 or 2. I absolutely loved it. It was like the first CRPG kind of isometric game I played, but I just found the world and the characters just so interesting. It's this built-in alternate history of Europe, and there's also supernatural elements, but it also feels very real. And the skill system is very unique because it's, instead of just investing points into strength or dexterity, you're investing points into your mind pretty much. It's all internal instead of external. So if you invest more points into the skill system, more of the skills will actually chime in during dialogue and give you advice or point something out about a conversation. So if you have empathy, it'll say, oh, this person's feeling bad. Or if you have more physical endurance, you'll have more chiming in about the person's wellness, physical wellness. So it's very unique. It's also very dark. It deals with a lot of subjects alcoholism and depression and lots of very dark stuff, but it also has a shred of compassion and humanity, and also wry wit to it that I very much enjoyed. It's something special in my opinion.
Yeah, as someone who hasn't been able to play it because I'm waiting for it to be on console, but at a distance, just as someone who has spent years railing against the de-RPGification of mainstream RPGs by Bethesda, and other Western companies especially, this game just conceptually means a ton to me. It is a loving embrace of the concept of RPGs at a mechanical level on the most nuanced and thoughtful and complex scale.
Yeah.
And that just means a lot to me. That being said, the other 2 games I've actually played, so I kind of have to prioritize them to some extent. And on that, Outer Wilds takes the cake easily for me. Outer Wilds is I've spent the last week calling it as kind of if you smushed Myst and Gone Home together. Because there's a lot of quote unquote walk-in simulator to it, honestly, but just 30% more gamified. Because it's really about the relationship between the player and their environments. It's about the interaction with the environments and the emotional sensations of being confronted with outer space planets that are as crazy as a planet that is covered in ocean, and the small set of an archipelago of islands on that ocean are being constantly tossed into the outer space, like out into space beyond the atmosphere, and then falling back down by massive cyclones. Um, and there's a massive current, massive powerful current under the ocean that keeps you from reaching the center of the planet, which obviously means that something important is there, and that you will you will just desperately throw yourself at that and try and figure out how to get deeper into the ocean, for the power of sheer curiosity. Yeah, the puzzle design is really, really smart. People call this game like overly obtuse and not like just doesn't like guide you clearly enough, and I sympathize that to some extent, but at the same time, like literally if you just spend the first couple cycles in the hometown that you start in and talk to everyone, you will literally go through like several major tutorials for the major gameplay components, and it will be a much easier game if people were just like, I respect the impulse of being able to just like immediately jump into the ship and just go wherever seemed cool, which is what I did at first. So I totally respect that impulse, and the game supports that impulse up to a point, because this game is about a celebration of the experience of exploration and the experience of curiosity for science and for the world. And yeah, like it's spoiler alert, other planets are hostile. They're not all going to be completely friendly to you, and so that's just a natural part of the design that you'll run into. But
So it makes sense to gather information up front.
Exactly, but you are completely free to just like go wherever you feel like, and like effectively the main like core narrative structure can be completed in any order. You can do any planets in any order roughly. There's a lot of freedom on that front, and that's, I think, like the counter argument to some of the complaints, the criticisms of it.
It also leads to like a lot of fun stories. I remember when I started, I only played a little bit of it, but like the most fun I had was like I finally got to the black hole planet, and I accidentally went through, and I was like floating in space. And once I got back to my ship, I lost control of it, and then just fell into the water planet and crashed. And then I couldn't get out. I couldn't control the ship really, so I just jumped out and just started like exploring. But I just drowned. When I thought that was just like a really fun, like emergent story.
Oh yeah,
Lots of things can go awry.
Yeah, there are constant experiences of very like silly, like just spun out of nowhere deaths, and that's just like, you're on a time loop anyway, so you just have to come to terms with the zenness of dying on repeat, and often very ways that will make you feel a little stupid.
Speaking of silly deaths, the last like half minute, let's talk about Death Stranding for a little bit. This is a game with a lot of silly deaths where you fall off sheer cliffs because you think you can scale them. And no, you cannot scale sheer cliffs as much as you try.
Oh my God, I in my short time with Death Stranding, I've had so many moments where I'm like, it's not that sheer of a slope, but I'm just like stumbling forward at a horrible momentum until I just like hurtling forward, and then I fucking crash into flat ground and break all my stuff.
Yeah, there are a lot of places in that game where you just like eat shit because you screwed up your footing in one place. I think it's what I'll say about it, and very quickly, is that it's a game that actually makes you appreciate movement in a weird way, because most of the time when you're running through a game, like it doesn't matter where you step or like exactly where you go, just as long as you get from point A to point B. Whereas like Death Stranding makes you think about where you walk, just like you do when you are walking yourself out in nature. Like you make all sorts of like 1,000 mental calculations in your brain when you're plotting a route like on a nature trail.
Yeah, and it's a very effective simulation of that. Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Also ended up being super topical for the times we live in right now. So
yeah,
Kojima probably has a crystal ball.
Yeah, it's a hardly a flawless game, but there is a lot that's very meaningful and satisfying to it, and I look forward to playing another few dozen hours of it.
All right, so let's take votes. Who's voting for Disco Elysium?
I am.
All right,
I am. For what that matters.
Okay, so who's voting for Outer Wilds?
Well, okay, I know I said that no one should get upset, and it's not like I'm taking it personally, but like, oh man, this game's so good, y'all. You should really check it out.
I really need
I
to play
will.
more of
Well,
it.
that's the thing about these tournaments. One game has to move on. The other's got to be eliminated. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't play the eliminated
Yes,
games, y'all.
that's
So,
completely true.
Yeah.
I guess it's also fair to say that like Outer Wilds won a bunch of like Game of the Year awards at major outlets this year, so I guess it's hipster to let it get eliminated really quickly. I'm always pro being
yeah,
a little
like
hipster.
I'm hoping that the least well-known game comes out on top, and then everybody's dissatisfied. It's
Yes.
gonna be great.
Oh yeah.
And I guess nobody's voting for Death Stranding. So, bye bye Kojima.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I'll play you someday.
Two different people in this group liked Death Stranding, but not enough.
I did like Death Stranding. It was after having played Control and I, the Somnium Files. It's now my 12th favorite game of 2019. But 12th favorite isn't bad
No, yeah,
for someone who
especially
plays as
when
many video games as I do.
exactly.
All right, so Disco Elysium, you are moving on. Bye
Yay.
bye Outer Worlds and Death Stranding. Okay, match number 4.
You said Outer
is-
Worlds again.
Oh, did I say Outer Worlds again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Outer Worlds is still in this. Outer Wilds
Yes.
is out. Sorry, Outer Wilds, the Mobius game, not the
Yes.
Obsidian game.
Yep.
This is gonna screw me over so much for forever.
Can you imagine
Okay.
if both games had gone through on their first respective rounds? Though?
Okay, so now we can safely vote for Outer Worlds to move on.
Yes.
We don't have to worry about Outer Wilds anymore. All right, match number 4: Fire Emblem Three Houses versus Heaven's Vault versus Untitled Goose Game. All right, this is going to be a weird matchup, but let's just dive right in. Fire Emblem Three Houses, developed by Intelligent Systems and Koei Tecmo, published by Nintendo, available on the Nintendo Switch. It's a turn-based tactical RPG where you take the role of a teacher at a monastery, training students for battle. And in the second half of the game, it splits into 3 routes, depending on which house the player chose to ally with in the first part of the game. Heaven's Vault, developed and published by Inkle, available on Windows and PS4. It is a Telltale-style narrative adventure with linguistic puzzles. You play as an archaeologist tasked with searching for a missing roboticist and uncovering the secrets of an ancient civilization. And its setting combines Arabian art with the kind of almost lived-in Star Wars-esque science fantasy aesthetic. And finally, Untitled Goose Game, developed by House and published by Panic, available on Windows, Mac, PS4, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch. It is a top-down stealth puzzle game where you play as a quote-unquote horrible goose who must complete a series of mischievous tasks. And it's famous now for having spawned numerous internet memes.
So I want to go behind the curtain on production for a second because I do think it gives you an insight into these games. Both Fire Emblem and Goose Game seeded extremely high in our set of 24, but for completely different reasons. Goose Game because so many people listed it, and and that speaks to like its sense of like broad appeal and this like very like light, fun charmingness. And Three Houses was listed by significantly fewer people, but almost everyone who did put it as their number 1 game.
That's me. It's my number 1 game.
It's
Like
not
your number
quite
one
my-
game of 2019 overall?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I absolutely adore Three Houses. I can't say it's quite my number 1 game, but it's very close.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Did we all
it's a
pick
game
Black-
that inspires a lot of passion.
Did we all pick the Black Eagles route here?
I mean, Edelgard is my empress. She's the best.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Look,
She did look interesting. from what I
Dimitri
saw.
loves mild spoilers. Dimitri loves the status quo. Claude thinks that he is the solution to the society's problems. Edelgard is the one who's most concerned about the system itself, and that was a big part of my choice because I'm like that.
Yeah,
I know a lot of
she's
people went
great
through and
character.
played all 3 routes.
Oh yeah, no, I've already played the Claude route as well. I've played 150 hours of this game, and I bought it 2 months ago.
Wow.
Oh dear.
Wow.
Yeah, So Three Houses, is actually a very thematically and like narratively thoughtful game. It's surprisingly political. I don't think that's the main reason why it's so beloved. I think honestly that's like the biggest thing is that it's a really really solid like execution of these numerous interlocking tactic systems that have been building over fucking 30 years of this franchise now. And it's a very very accessible and satisfying from the jump version of that. I've played 150 hours of this game. I had never played Fire Emblem before, and I've barely played strategy games up to this point, and I found it intensely accessible and consistently satisfying.
It's so weird
Yeah,
that this
just
franchise has gone from like, remember when Brawl came out? Not Brawl, Melee came out, and everyone was like, "Who the fuck is Marth?"
Yeah, I know,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And now
Marth
And
it's
now
like,
it's like there are too many swords in Smash
Where-
Brothers.
Marth
Why
and
are there
Roy,
18
Sword boys?
swordmen?
I love it
Marth and
all.
Roy were, Marth and Roy were literally characters that had only appeared in Japanese games prior to their appearance in Melee.
Marth
And
was
yeah,
so good in Melee, though.
oh, he was.
Yeah.
And I am a big fan of a lot of the Fire Emblem characters, as is I think DW and Demyx in
Yeah.
Smash.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I love it.
But
all
yeah,
right,
it's
let's talk a
crazy
bit
how
about
much
Heaven's
got it.
Vault and Untitled Goose Game. So I think a lot of you played Untitled Goose Game as well.
Yes, I like it. It's a good game, but I think there's a lot of room for improvement.
I
I mean,
did
that's
not
pretty much where
like
I'm at.
Untitled Goose Game.
I did not like it either.
Yeah, I like what it was trying to do. I like what it was trying to be. I like the art style, but it wasn't fun.
I'm exactly there.
There's a lot of just sitting and waiting for things to happen.
I put it this way: I am super happy that all the memes happened.
Oh
I
yeah.
love the goose memes. I just
Me
don't
too.
really like the game.
As someone who I'll consistently argue of Goose Game as being like the family friendly like Hitman,
It totally
IO's
is.
Hitman series, and like Hitman, which is it's like stealth action series where a lot of it is about hiding in plain sight and infiltration and like basically the environment as a puzzle to solve of like figuring out all the different elements to interact with and how to use them to your advantage. I'd argue, yeah, Goose Game is obviously a very simplified version of that concept, but I would argue that it executes it well enough to up to a point. It's just that it's too simplified for a lot of people, and that not everyone finds the tension of sitting in place waiting for the right time to strike to be very satisfying, and that's perfectly valid. Merve, you like Heaven's Vault a lot. You should talk about it.
Yeah, so Heaven's Vault is, I should admit, it's a game that has fallen a little bit in my estimation in the past, like having reflected on it, because it is a game that is extraordinarily buggy. So if you're going to play it, just be forewarned. But what I think is really special about it is that it's not just your dialogue choices that influences what happens. It's how you solve puzzles and interpret the ancient language you're trying to decode that influences the narrative. Because archaeology and like ancient linguistics are to some extent subjective. I mean, there's obviously an objective truth about what happened in the past, but the way you interpret things according to modern sensibilities is there's some degree of ambiguity there. And it makes that degree of ambiguity matter for the narrative, which I think is really clever.
Yeah, that sounds very cool. Also, may I make a suggestion about the voting? Sorry.
Yeah.
I think it might be a little less like awkwardly paced and whatnot to go voter by voter rather than game by game.
All right, let's do it that way then.
Okay.
And in the remaining 5 seconds, let's actually just call it and let's vote.
Yeah.
Okay, so Bones, what are you voting for?
Fire Emblem.
All right, Demyx, whom are you voting for?
Definitely Fire Emblem.
And DW, what are you voting for?
Yeah, Fire Emblem.
Oh wow, this is a blowout.
Our first unanimous vote.
Yeah. I would have voted for Heaven's Vault, but it wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay. So, bye-bye, Heaven's Vault, and Goose Game.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, Fire Emblem Three Houses. Okay, so let's go on to match number 5, which is Final Fantasy XIV Shadowbringers versus Luigi's Mansion 3 versus Manifold Garden. All right. So Final Fantasy XIV Shadowbringers was developed and published by Square Enix. It's available on Windows, Mac, and PS4. It's an expansion for the MMORPG Final Fantasy XIV. It's the third major expansion pack for the game. Takes players to a new dimension called the First Star. Features new raids, including one themed around Nier Automata. Luigi's Mansion 3, developed by Next Level Games and published by Nintendo, available on the Switch. It's an action-adventure puzzle game, and instead of the previous entries in the franchise where you were exploring a haunted mansion, now you're exploring a large haunted, almost Vegas-style hotel with various themed floors, and you're accompanied by a goo monster named Guigi, which is just a goo version of Luigi, which is brilliant. And then finally, Manifold Garden, which was published and developed by William Kyer Studio, available on Windows, Mac, and iOS. It's a first-person puzzle, uses kind of an Ascherian aesthetic, reminiscent of a game you might have played called Antichamber. Its main puzzle mechanics involved shifting gravity, so turning walls into floors and floors into walls, and exploring the world's infinite repeating kind of fractal structure and using that to solve puzzles. All right. So let's just get started. What did y'all play of this list? I guess a bunch you played Luigi's Mansion 3?
Am I the only one who's played Luigi's Mansion 3?
I haven't played it yet, so...
I played Luigi's Mansion in anticipation and ended up not liking it all that much, so I have not.
The GameCube one? Yeah, that's...
Yeah, the 3DS remake.
Yeah, that's valid. I don't know why they were so committed to putting that series on 3DS for a while, because I think this is a series that really, really needs 2 full thumbsticks. And like GameCube at least has the C stick, which I don't like very much, but that's at least a second stick. I don't think the physical satisfaction of like pulling on the sticks every which way as you wrestle with the ghost like really translates to the circle pad on the 3DS.
Potentially.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna go positive first. I think Luigi's Mansion 3 is a masterpiece. It's been my number 1 game of 2019 for 4 consecutive months, even as I played literally 10 more games than I had previously. I think like a lot like Outer Wilds is a celebration of the sensation of exploration and physics objects. Just so many fucking physics objects. Holy shit! Like if you've ever like whether it's EDF or Red Faction or whatever, like if you like destroying objects and environments, Luigi's Mansion 3 really satisfies that urge.
Oh, I love destroying things.
Yeah, it's also like I would argue that the core mechanic set of when you're playing it with 2 proper thumbsticks is it feels very good, and the loop of, as I've said before, the loop of capturing the ghost and slamming it around and slamming it into other ghosts, and how that allows you to slip effortlessly into sucking up the next ghost is very, very good. So I don't like Manifold Garden, Merve. I'm sorry.
Manifold Garden was my favorite game of 2019.
I know. I played it for 4 hours. I think it's bad.
I think it's a brilliant puzzle game with a very clever central mechanic, gorgeous aesthetic, and clever puzzles that teeter between like right on the proper edge of like frustratingly difficult versus too simple, or like needlessly involved. Because there's some puzzle games where it's just like you have to keep track of so many things at once that solving them becomes super difficult. Whereas with Manifold Garden, you don't have to keep track of as much. It's more like, can you reason through this like the spatial complexity more than it is like, can you remember 80 steps? So I think it's a brilliant game.
I think the core concept of Manifold Garden is really sound. The sense of like that what it's about is controlling your center of gravity and using the manipulation of that with the interaction with the environment to figure things out. I like that. I also think undeniably that it's a game of a very specific and strong sense of vision, and I'll always admire that. That this is a guy who's I think has a background in architecture, and so he's just obsessed with space and interaction with space, and
he's like a sculptor by training.
Yeah, this is how I conveyed that. I just think that the aesthetic's kind of hard to look at, and that it's very unsatisfying to play. I don't think the puzzles are up to a point they're fine, but they get really obtuse really quickly, and just generally it feels like it's not quite active enough to really keep you going in the same way that I would say the puzzles in Outer Wilds are really good.
I have a math degree, so this appeals to my sensibilities.
That's valid.
Anybody played Shadowbringers?
I want to talk about Shadowbringers, actually. I didn't
Go for
play
it.
it, but I want to talk about it.
All right, let's talk about Shadowbringers.
Yeah, because I played Final Fantasy XIV for quite a while, and I had to quit cold turkey because it was consuming my life, which is why I didn't play Shadowbringers. But because I was curious, I read all about the raids and what they did with it, and it sounds amazing. And I think Final Fantasy XIV is a really amazing MMO. They do really great things with the narrative, the setting, the soundtrack is phenomenal. And I listened to the Shadowbringers soundtrack and read about what happened in the plot, and I was really impressed. There's a lot of mind screw and going into alternate dimensions, which it's totally something I love. So, and the villain sounds really cool. It is very Kingdom Hearts. So I love that. So I really, really wish I could play Final Fantasy XIV without destroying my life, because I really would have loved to play Shadowbringers. It is absolutely up my alley.
That's valid, and that sounds cool. I'm so not an MMO person, but I can respect that.
Yeah, one of the reasons I started playing FF14 was just because I really wanted to see what Shadowbringers was like, because people kept saying it's the best, one of the best Final Fantasy stories ever. So I was just really curious to see what all the fuss was about.
Did you play any of the Shadowbringers content in the end?
No, I'm still on a Realm Reborn. I have I don't know, hundreds of hours of content left to play, so it'll be a while.
Yeah,
a while before you play the Nier Automata raid.
Yeah.
Heaven's Word is a fantastic narrative, the first expansion. So hearing that they topped that for Shadowbringers is pretty impressive.
All right. Time's up. Let us vote. Okay, so Demyx, what are you voting for?
Shadowbringers.
Bones, what are you voting for?
Luigi's Mansion 3. Oh boy.
And DW, what are you voting for?
I'll vote for Luigi's Mansion.
All right, Luigi's Mansion moves on. Sorry, Shadowbringers. I thought you were going to vote for Shadowbringers. I thought this was going to be a weird upset.
I thought so too, but then I was I'm more familiar with. I'm completely completely blind to the story of Shadowbringers, so I don't want to spoil myself. So I feel it'd be unfair to just do that.
So you're voting for it for meta reasons. You're afraid we're going to talk about it more and spoil it, despite the fact that none of us have played it.
I'm paranoid like that.
Yeah, I could spoil it because I read all the plot, but
They're going to be friendly about this. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah,
okay.
it's fine. And I'm not gonna be a dick about Luigi winning. I don't believe in that.
Luigi for life.
Luigi is the dick when he wins. We've all played Mario Kart 8. We know.
Yeah.
We know that Luigi's a secret asshole.
Look, Luigi's he's been through so much. he has a lot behind his angry stares. Anyway,
yeah. He has not suffered as much as Waluigi. I think we can all agree.
Fuck off. She has not had a single narrative experience except turning into a rabbit once and being the villain in the DDR game.
So the DDR game was kind of amazing.
That's fair.
I own that and the Mario Dance Pad for some reason, so.
That's very valid.
I've never
But
even heard of
I,
this.
I don't think. Yeah, I mean, DDR was really big in the 2000s, and Nintendo, was kind of struggling with the GameCube, so they did Mario DDR on GameCube. Anyway, like not being in mainline Mario games is not a bad thing. Fucking deal with it, Waluigi. Daisy hasn't been in a mainline Mario game in 30 years.
Oh, Daisy has suffered like no one else.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, but Daisy is in Smash Brothers.
and she's top tier.
So is he. Being playable is not the be all end all. This is silly. Seed 6.
I love how angry Waluigi makes people. It's great.
I hate Waluigi so much, y'all. I'm sorry.
He also has like Gamma on his hat. He should be like Gamma Ouija or something. Anyway, match number 6, which is Super Mario Maker 2 versus Cadence of Hyrule versus The Outer Worlds. Not The Outer Wilds, The Outer Worlds. Okay, let us get down to that match. Super Mario Maker 2, developed and published by Nintendo, available on the Switch. It's a 2D platformer / level creator. It features, in a series first, a single-player campaign, and players can create Mario levels in 5 styles: Super Mario 1, Super Mario 3, Super Mario World, New Super Mario Bros. U, and Super Mario 3D World. Cadence of Hyrule, Crypt of the Necrodancer, featuring The Legend of Zelda, was developed by Brace Yourself Games and published by Nintendo. Yes, you get the full title. You get the full experience of the Avocado Gamescast. It's available on the Nintendo Switch. It's a roguelike rhythm game. It is, in some ways, similar to a regular top-down roguelike, except for players execute successful attacks by doing them in time with the rhythm of the music. And it uses theming, as you'd expect from the name, from the Zelda series. And finally, The Outer Worlds, developed by Obsidian Entertainment and published by Private Division, available on Windows, PS4, and Xbox One. It's a first-person action RPG. Is quite reminiscent of Fallout New Vegas. It's set in an alternate future where megacorporations have colonized and terraformed alien planets, and it's well regarded for its dark and satirical humor. All right, let's get to talking about these games.
So, Cadence of Hyrule?
Yeah, that's a game that you have played.
What? Yeah, I love Crypt of the Necrodancer, and I think it's amazing. I think it's a little underrated. It doesn't... I think most people who played it enjoyed it. It's a fantastically creative idea. It's really executed in an amazingly satisfying way. So when I saw that Brace Yourself was getting to make a game with Nintendo properties, I was thrilled to see that. Because that is so exciting that Nintendo is giving their properties over to a small indie developer who did great work. So, and Cadence of Hyrule itself... So partially I want to vote for it just for that, what it represents, but it's also a great game. It's fun. The soundtrack is just as amazing as you might expect if you play Crypt of the Necrodancer. The mechanics translate over really well. It's satisfying. So yeah, Cadence of Hyrule is really good and people should play it.
I really struggled with Cadence. I didn't find it very satisfying to play, but I have to concede that a big part of that is that I have no rhythm. A rhythm game has to be as easy and accessible as Sayonara Wild Hearts for me to get any joy out of it, unfortunately. And I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry for that. I recognize that's my own problem.
I mean,
the weird thing is...
I think it's not a rhythm game, because a rhythm game generally you're trying to play notes to a song, and Cadence of Hyrule and Crypt of the Necrodancer are really just hitting on a beat, and it's more about being able to react in a certain rhythm than any kind of traditional rhythm game. It reminds me a little more, if there were a rhythm game it's closest to, it'd probably be something like Rhythm Heaven.
Okay, well, it was still too rhythmic for me. I was constantly missing the note. I was constantly missing the note and not moving and missing my attack and all sorts of stuff. And again, that's my problem. There's a lot I respect about the game. It's great presentation.
So it's almost
complex.
Like Remember Me. Do you guys remember Me?
I do.
No.
I actually
It's almost
do.
like that. Yeah, I think I'm the only person who remembers that game, aside from DW.
Hey, I said yes too.
Oh, you did say yes.
I
Sorry.
remember me.
Okay.
That's enough.
Sorry, I misheard you. Yeah, that's a similar idea where you have to attack in time with the beat. Like otherwise, your combo is broken if you don't press it rhythmically. So it's an interesting idea because it actually kind of lines up with the beat of the music in that game as well. So I wanted to talk about Super Mario Maker 2, which is interesting for me because I don't think it has a great single player campaign, but the level design tools are just so easy and intuitive to use, and there's so many great levels available online through the sharing feature that like it's a game where you really make your own fun, and the fun that other people have made for it is really phenomenal.
And you can sort of curate that fun. Like you can go from like super hard Kaizo shit to like more puzzly things, or you can just do like one of those weird levels where they play like a song. So it's very much like like you said, create your own fun.
I like the gimmicks where they make it follows with a poison mushroom and stuff like that. Mario Maker 2 is a lot like Cadence, where its core uniqueness and like strength of the concept and the implementation is worthwhile on its own. I do think by definition Mario Maker 1 laid so much of the groundwork for it.
Yeah, that's
like
true.
It clones a lot from Mario Maker 1, just adds a bunch of new features.
yeah.
So let's talk about the Outer Worlds.
Yes. Okay.
Who's
So
played that?
I really like Outer Worlds. It's in my top 5. For one thing, this is and I don't think this is really disputable. This is the single most polished game Obsidian has ever released, and I don't yes, and I don't think that's worth nothing. But no, I still like the game a lot. I think the writing is generally like very smart and nuanced, and it's like it could be easy to reduce it to either like just like such a hammer in the nail of like satire of corporate culture, or like that it reduces the conflict to like both sidesism about capitalism and socialism or whatever. I think generally it's more thoughtful of that. I don't think those criticisms are very fair. But I think it struggles on the gameplay front more than the writing front. Like combat still got very old very quickly, as is the case for me with most Western RPGs. Like genuinely, there could have been so much less of it. I don't think the game would have suffered for that. Like it could still convey the experience of like being in a lawless alien planet frontier and have less combat, and you'd still get the same result.
Yeah.
And like
You want combat to feel meaningful when it happens, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it weirdly like the game makes like character building harder than it should be for a game that's about role playing game mechanics. And like there's a lot of cool stuff and like and satisfying stuff that comes with that, but at the same time like it's actually hard to like get to a fully leveled character within the game scale. And I think the game scale is a plus, but like when I'm reclassing myself like 6 times going into the end game, so I'm not completely fucked. I think that is a failure of design to some extent. But there's a lot I like about the game, and like real RPGs being made in the West is just very important to me. So I will fight pretty hard for it.
Yeah.
All right, so let's vote. DW, what you voting for?
I'll vote for Mario Maker 2.
All right, Demyx, what are you voting for?
Cadence of Hyrule.
And Bones, what are you voting for?
Merve, this is our first tiebreaker. Yeah, I have to go Outer Worlds personally. So
I tiebroke the first round, didn't I?
oh, I guess you did. Yeah.
True.
But yeah. I mean, you're probably
All right.
you're probably voting for Sup Mama too, right?
I got a vote. I actually got a vote for Super Mario Maker 2.
Yeah.
Not just because it's the only game I played, but because it gave me a lot of joy, and it allowed me to create a level where you kill Yoshis to solve puzzles, and that made me very happy.
That's a good
I
reason.
I think that's completely fair, and I'm very happy for this game to make it forward because it is so cool and creative. And I really look forward to actually playing it sometime.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. And you can play my Super Yoshi killing level.
I absolutely will. It's not like we aren't Switch friends. Like I'm seeing you up at 4 a.m. playing Astral Chain or whatever all the time.
Don't tell everybody how I live.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Let's move on to match number 7 first, which is I have words. Match number 7, which is the Resident Evil 2 remake versus Greedfall versus Monster Hunter World Iceborne. Okay, let's talk about these games. The Resident Evil 2 remake was published and developed by Capcom, available on Windows, PS4, and Xbox One. It's a survival horror third-person shooter. It's a remake of the famous 1998 game of the same name, except for instead of using tank controls, this time it uses modern third-person shooter controls. And much of the game takes place in the iconic Raccoon City police station. Alright, Greedfall, developed by Spiders, published by Focus Home Interactive, also available on Windows, PS4, and Xbox One. It's an action RPG. Takes place on a fictional island paradise in a 17th century colonial setting, where you, with some magic and supernatural stuff thrown in, you play the role of a colonist trying to find a cure for an illness plaguing them and their family. And finally, Monster Hunter World Iceborne, developed and published by Capcom, also available on Windows, PS4, and Xbox One. I think this is the only matchup where every game is on the same set of platforms. It's an action RPG, and it's the expansion to the 2018 game of Monster Hunter World, where you play as a hunter tasked with trapping and or killing monsters. This time, though, it's set in a polar subcontinent. All right. So, what do y'all think of these games?
I mean, RE2 makes real good, man. I've talked about this before. Like I think it accomplishes the concept of a 3D third person Metroidvania really well. Arguably in some ways better than Control does.
Wow.
I think the experience of just of navigating the police station and just like gradually building the sense of like I know this place in and out, and I can bring these puzzle solutions back and forth, and I know how many zombies are where, and whether I have the resources for them, and I know where Mr. X is. Like I think that whole sensation is just fantastic, top to bottom. I think the game like kind of suffers after it leaves the police station in the last like third-ish.
That's right.
Where it kind of throws a little too much combat at you and like kind of dilutes the puzzle intellectual aspects of it, but it's still like extremely well crafted game, and it's incredible that they that as someone who prefers fixed camera angles over like player controlled, which is I realize kind of controversial in this day and age. I think the game does an extremely good job with managing its presentation and its use of the camera, and like updating a game that was tank controlled and fixed camera to a player controlled camera without it feeling like less cinematic of an experience, for lack of a better term. I mean more like dramatic, but but just like it still uses the camera good.
I haven't actually played Resident Evil 2. You know what I have played? The Resident Evil 2 mod campaigns for Left 4 Dead 2. So okay, that's how I'm familiar. Sorry, go ahead.
You also notably don't like the mechanics in Left 4 Dead, so...
No, this is actually going to be praised for the whole... I didn't like Left 4 Dead 2 until I started playing the add-on campaigns. Okay. The base campaigns are crap.
Oh, I love
mod campaigns are...
I love all the main campaigns. I just love everything about Left 4 Dead, but that was a conversation for 10 years ago.
For me, like, Valve games are always the most fun ones, just like crazy, goofy mod shit, and like you just see what happens. That's always the most fun I have with like Counter-Strike and stuff like that.
Yeah, so that's why I like when people take like the core mechanics of like Left 4 Dead 2 and they set them in the Raccoon City Police Department, and I think it kind of recreates the feeling of solving puzzles, and like Bones alluded to, getting familiar with the space and knowing it in and out, and then using that to figure out puzzles. That I think was super cool. I do want to take a little bit to talk about Greedfall and Iceborne as well.
Yeah.
Greedfall is interesting, and I'm almost inclined, if I were voting, I'd almost be inclined to vote for it just for what it represents. I've kind of lamented the decline of Bethesda and BioWare, and how they're
Hi.
no longer
Yeah.
kind of reliable as these big Western RPG makers. And I'd like to see Spiders kind of rise the ranks and make a game that's not ultra janky and is big in scope and ambition. And I think Greedfall represents a step in that direction. It's still
Totally.
super janky because this is a Spiders game after all, but it's less janky than their previous games, and also represents kind of a big step forward about scope and ambition. So I'd like to see more of that.
I totally agree with you about Greedfall. Like I said, I haven't gotten the chance to play it, but yeah, like just by the aspect of what it contributes to the current state of role playing games, it's valuable. And from what I hear, it has some like pretty interesting ideas and the and mechanic stuff that it's working with. Like it's interesting that it and Outer Worlds came out both so close together because they're both really about colonialism.
Yeah.
I
Greedfall
can't.
also has like some mild Metroidvania mechanics in it as well, which I thought
Yeah.
was super cool.
Yeah.
Like you can only get to certain parts of the island once you unlock certain abilities that'll like clear a path. You see this in some open world RPGs as well.
Yeah.
Like Xenoblade Chronicles 2 has some elements of that as well.
Oh, yeah, and another thing about like, sorry, really quickly, like a thing about Greedfall is Outer Worlds is combining like that like design ambition with like a more reasonable sense of scope and scale. Like it's beneficial to the producers, but also like, yeah, like if you're exhausted by open worlds and like a game where you're supposed to just put way too many hours into, and I know I've talked about how I put way too many hours into Fire Emblem, like these games being consciously small scale and like wanting you to get the full experience within that smaller like scope and play time and all that, I think is also very valuable to the to where the industry is right now.
Yeah, like I don't need every RPG to be 150 hours. I'm
Yeah.
good with a world. Like if I spend 45 hours in an RPG, I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I've gotten my money's worth. I enjoyed it, and I'm not tired of it.
I think
But if you're pushing
if
me, like, sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I mean, I was interrupting you, but I'm sorry. But yeah, if a game really can pull off like the sense of like quote unquote like epicness, the grandeur, like if they can truly pull off that degree of scale, like more power to them. I think Dragon Age Inquisition, like mostly succeeds on that front. And like yeah, like that's a very satisfactory experience too. I'm sure like Persona 5 or whatever similarly. So I haven't played it yet.
I would say, I'd say Dragon Age Inquisition is one of the few games that actually succeeds at it, and it's
Yeah.
become weirdly underrated in the
Yeah.
years since its
Oh,
release.
yeah.
Weird, really weird how people like.
It's
I have a
weird
lot of
how the
friends.
opinion on that game is just turned around. In the final like 15 seconds or so, anybody want to say something about Iceborne?
Okay, so I, I'm sure this is reductive, but Monster Hunter World Iceborne is probably a very effective continuation of what's good about Monster Hunter World, which is to say that it takes another series very notorious for numerous intricately interlocking systems of obtuseness and complexity and like makes them more accessible and more like immediately satisfying to engage with, and combines that with action that has a lot of strategic thought put into it, where you have to you have to keep in mind the environment you're working with and what is or isn't strong or weak against a given monster and so on and so forth.
All right. Wait, did any of us actually play Iceborne?
I haven't.
I
You,
I have Monster
wait,
Hunter World, but I still haven't touched it. I've had it for more than a year.
I played the tutorial of Monster Hunter World.
okay.
Backlogs are hell, man.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is all experience. Okay. Demyx, what are you voting for?
I was going to abstain this round because I do not have an opinion on any of these games.
Abstention is not allowed. This is Australia. Wait,
Ah.
I do want to say
you
that's
can
a valid
spoil your
choice.
ballot verbally. You can just like scream if you want.
I don't know. I guess I'll vote for RE2 Remake. It sounds like the most interesting of the three.
Yeah.
All right, Bones, what are you voting for?
This is really tough because I've only played one of the two games I've considered, and I haven't played Greedfall. I really like RE2 Make a lot, although I do think it's maybe slightly overrated. Not that overrating and underrating is that meaningful of a thing anyway. I'm getting caught in the weeds here.
Okay, so DW, why don't you
I'm
vote while
sorry.
Bones is deciding?
I'm
As someone who's played Remake 2 for like 100 hours, I'm voting for that.
Let's see. Okay, yeah, okay, then it doesn't matter what I say, so I guess I'll just say I vote for Greedfall.
just to get it on paper.
Yeah.
All right. So sorry, Iceborne. I'm sure someone loves you, but we are not those people.
Yeah. And
Greedfall
Greedfall apparently sold really well, so I'm really happy to hear that at least.
I'm actually if I played video games for a living, Greedfall would be near the top of my list. But I unfortunately don't play video games for a living. I have a job that involves doing math all day long. So sorry, Greedfall.
Yeah, I very much feel that. I hope Greedfall 2 comes out in a couple of years and it's like big enough that we all just happen to play it and like it.
I just want good things for spiders. They try so hard.
They really do. Yeah. So,
all right. Match number 8 of the first round. The final match of the first round. It is Pokemon Sword and Shield, which is 2 games. So that's kind of cheating, but who cares?
Okay,
Pokemon Sword and Shield
they're
Kingdom
one
Hearts
game.
3.
They're one game with 2 variations.
They're 2 flavors of the same game. Pokemon Sword and Shield versus Kingdom Hearts 3 versus Metro Exodus. This is going to be an interesting matchup, I think.
Yeah.
So let's meet our contestants. Pokemon Sword and Shield, developed by Game Freak and co-published by the Pokemon Company and Nintendo, available on the Nintendo Switch. It is a turn-based RPG. It is set in the Galar region, which is inspired by Great Britain. Features a fully explorable open world area called the Wild Area, and a new mechanic called Dynamaxing that makes your Pokemon huge. Kingdom Hearts 3. Developed and published by Square Enix, available on the PS4 and the Xbox One. It's a hack and slash action RPG with some magical abilities thrown in for good measure. It's the concluding installment in the current story arc of the long-running franchise. I should say was the concluding installment. Then they announced Project Xehanort. Who knows what the fuck that is?
It's the completion of the Xehanort saga.
It's a mobile game, from my understanding.
Oh, yeah, the mobile game is Kingdom Hearts
Okay.
is the completion of the Xehanort saga.
Yes.
For whatever that's worth.
Yeah, Kingdom Hearts 3 is not the conclusion of anything, to be clear, though.
No, absolutely not.
And yes, to be
supposed to be the end.
No,
Damn it, Nomura.
it's the end of the Xehanort saga, and also, Nomura loves making mobile games that are extremely narratively relevant to the series.
All we know is that Kingdom Hearts 4 will be a new story arc that will probably depend on the old story arc in some way. Anyway, Kingdom Hearts 3 features worlds based on famous Disney properties like Frozen, Tangled, and Big Hero 6. Metro Exodus, developed by 4A Games, published by Deep Silver, available on Windows, PS4, Xbox One, and Stadia. Yes, it is the only Stadia game in this bracket. It is a first-person shooter, survival horror, and stealth game. It's the 3rd installment in the Metro series, based on a popular series of novels. It's set in post-apocalyptic Russia and Kazakhstan. Features both linear levels and larger, more sandbox-like ones, in contrast to the corridors of some of the earlier Metro games. All right. Let's chat.
So I got to talk about Kingdom Hearts 3.
Just get it over with.
Yeah,
get it over with like it's ripping off a Band-Aid.
That's kind of how I felt about Kingdom Hearts 3 by the end. I mean, I'm still probably going to vote for it because I love it, but it was also disappointing. So I feel very mixed about it. It's the conclusion to the saga was not as satisfying as you had hoped, and not just because of Nomura, because I love the Nomura craziness. I honestly thought they could have gone a lot more crazy. One of the big problems with Kingdom Hearts 3 is you spend the entire front half all in these Disney worlds, and they're fun and all, but it isn't advancing the story at all. They literally keep telling Sora you can't do anything or be part of the story, and it's very frustrating because all the NPCs go off and do the actual important stuff while you're sitting and listening to Let It Go, which is presented in its entirety exactly how it is in the movie for some reason. And that
That's just like
it's just a massive blitz of story that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And but like the good points are the Disney worlds are maybe better than ever. They're huge. They're really well realized. Some of the ones like Toy Story look exactly like the movie, and it's really impressive. And just the soundtrack is great, and the combat is mostly really satisfying. I think it's a little flawed, but I mean, if you like Kingdom Hearts combat, it's more of that. So yeah, I think it has a lot going for it, but it's frustrating because there's the bones of a really good game there, but it doesn't quite make it.
the plot structure you described is almost like Mass Effect 3, except for Mass Effect 3 turned that into almost a selling point that you're playing like the hidden side of the war instead of fighting on the front lines.
Yeah,
You're navigating bureaucracy and also experiencing like espionage as a military thing.
Yeah,
See,
and if
that
they
sounds really interesting. I think the problem with Kingdom Hearts 3 is you're not actually supporting the war, so in any way. They literally tell you to go off and train.
But on the other hand,
that's very shonen anime.
Yeah, it is. But
Um,
like it feels like you're not participating in any of the interesting things.
on the other hand, it has Jim Hanks, Tom Hanks' brother, as Woody saying, "I don't know what you're talking about, but I don't care." To one of Nomura's
So-
Nomuri types, and
That's
it's
amazing.
the
announced
funniest thing
that
ever.
they announced that the Toy Story world of Kingdom Hearts 3 is actually canonical to Toy Story. So between Toy Story 2 and Toy Story 3, the movies, they actually met Xehanort.
Yeah.
It just that yeah, I don't know.
I'm on board with that. Fuck it, make Disney weird.
I mean, that's what I love about Kingdom Hearts. It makes Disney weird.
All right, let's talk about Pokemon.
Hi. Yeah. Okay. I said it several months ago. Yeah. Pokemon Sword and Shield is a good game. It's not great. I I think.
So much enthusiasm in this matchup.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I feel the same way about Pokemon.
Yeah. I think there's a lot about it that will really help like a new player like be able to get more into it than previous games. That I could speak to that from direct experience because I watched my girlfriend get really into it, and it was her first Pokemon game. Well, I should say she tried to play I think Black 2 question mark. She tried to play one of like the DS 3DS ones, and she's really struggled with it. So the fact that this game was easier for her to get into counts for something, experientially. I think the fact that the reduced Pokédex like really helps you to have a, well, I can't say more balance because I don't do like competitive stuff, and balance honestly doesn't truly apply to like the main game of Pokemon at all. It just doesn't.
That might be a problem with the series.
Perhaps. It's more just about the fact that it's supposed to be accessible enough that like a 5-year-old or say me, who is sometimes as dumb as a 5-year-old, can play it and have a good time. Yeah, exactly. I think the reduced decks really benefits the game's design in terms of just like that it's less overwhelming, and it you're more, for me at least, you're much more motivated to catch more and to diversify your team and continually like train more total number of Pokemon and like get the joy out of that from the fact that there's much fewer total. It really helps with what is arguably like supposed to be the main thing of it, the quote unquote catching them all. Also the what was I gonna say? The presentation of the gym battles is really, really cool and fun. Like they're just all about like scale and like really intense music and just generally making gym battles feel like dynamic, both visually and otherwise. There's a lot I like about this game that I like more than some other previous Pokemon games, but also like if Pokemon has always been too simplistic for you, then that's definitely still going to be the case.
Understandable. All right, let's spend about a minute talking about Metro Exodus.
I'm sorry, I'm so long-winded.
That's all
Have
good.
any of you played Metro Exodus? Because it seems like an interesting game that enjoy if I played it. I just haven't gotten around to the Metro series. I think I even have the first 2 Metro games on Steam. Not that you can get Metro Exodus on Steam currently. That was a whole controversy. So, do you all know anything about it? Have any of y'all played it?
I haven't played it, but I think
But
it is cool how like Deep Silver has gone from like the super like small studio that made like a janky FPS in the first game and is now like making this big open world sort of survival horror game that's like on multiple platforms and like was on the E3 show. So I think that's what's so cool about it, in my opinion.
That's valid. Yeah, I don't know a lot about Metro. Yeah, I understand like Exodus was the first like more sandboxy open world designed one than the previous ones. And I saw a lot of people who felt that like was detrimental to the overall like gameplay loop. I can't speak to that because I haven't played any of them. But yeah, I definitely saw that as a thing out there, like an argument for why Exodus is less preferable than say the second one or whatever.
Yeah, I've heard it go both ways. Some people appreciated like the more open strategic environments, and some people thought that the series thrived best in its horror roots in the corridors. So it was a polarizing decision for sure. Okay, so I guess we should take a vote. Demyx, what are you voting for?
I'm voting for Kingdom Hearts 3. I'm federally mandated.
Okay. Bones, what are you voting for?
Yeah, Pokemon.
Such an enthusiastic vote.
That game was literally like is at like number 13 out of my ranking for 2019 at this point, but it's still a good game.
And DW, what are you voting for?
Kingdom Hearts 3 because it has its like I'm obsessed with that series.
Oh my gosh,
Okay.
Kingdom Hearts advances. So many people are going to be so mad, and and the salt is
I'm
giving
mad.
me life.
I know I promised to be positive, but holy shit, I hate Kingdom Hearts so much, you guys.
Why let me on this podcast if you don't want me to vote for Kingdom Hearts?
Well,
Oh,
I
man, the
honestly
salt.
assumed your negativity for it would outweigh the positive.
I'm negative about it because I care.
I don't know. Sometimes disappointment is a very powerful force.
We have you'll have a chance to eliminate Kingdom Hearts 3 in the next round.
But I want to apologize, and I won't go too negative going forward from that. Like, that's not fair or necessary.
No, it's all good.
All right.
Just want to express frustration for a second.
All right, that concludes the first round of the tournament. Let us move into the quarterfinal matches. In match number 9, we have the winner of match number 5 versus the winner of match number 8. So that means it's Luigi's Mansion 3 facing off against Kingdom Hearts 3 in a battle of the threequels.
3-on-3, like basketball.
Yeah, exactly like pickup basketball. All right. Fight it out.
Okay.
Which one is better?
Okay, so I'm not gonna make the argument, like hinge the argument on this is why Luigi's Mansion is better than Kingdom Hearts, although I do believe that so deeply in my heart. No, this is just about why Luigi's Mansion 3 is worthwhile and meaningful on its own right. It doesn't have to win, regardless of how this plays out. Okay. Luigi's Mansion 3, if you're a fan of literally any Nintendo game, any game, even just one, and you appreciate the creativity born out from that Nintendo game, then you'll appreciate the boundless well of creativity in Luigi's Mansion 3. You fight a pirate captain who is a shark, and the shark ghost possesses his own ship, and like a scary like giant angry ghost mouth face opens up in the floorboards of the ship and tries to eat you, which is amazing. There's a moral choice in Luigi's Mansion 3. Wolfman talked about this like half a year ago now. Christ. There's one of the ghost bosses on like in one of the middle floors is a Italian director named Morty, and Morty's one of the only ghosts who you have an entirely like neutral relationship with. He doesn't immediately attack you as soon as you see him. He just wants you to help him finish his movie. And then when you finish the movie, like by solving a very intricate series of puzzles, you've completed the floor and you can move on. But then you can find him in the editing room, and you can just capture and trap him without him fighting back at all. And there's no reward for doing that, so it's purely just a matter of like, has this game gotten me to care enough about this ghost character in the like 2 hours I've spent with it?
How is that a
Aw.
moral choice? That's just like essentially kill an innocent for no reward or not.
I think that's a better.
There's morality.
Yeah.
It's just
Like,
the
I
morality is
guess-
very clear.
I guess it's
Fundamentally, yeah,
I guess it's a moral choice, but why would you? I don't know. Maybe I feel too much for
For fun?
pixel
You get-
characters.
I would kill him for fun.
I will say you
because
do
I'm a fucking evil person.
you do get an in-game achievement for capturing every single main ghost. So it's purely like if you want to do it, put it on that level. Yeah.
Oh, there's a Chivo. Then that makes it clear. I would fucking kill this ghost if I knew I was gonna get an achievement.
Also, if you're one of those people who's been complaining about Nintendo not implementing like console-wide achievements, Luigi's Mansion 3 has a bunch of just built-in achievements that you can do. And are very fun in that sense. Also, the ending of this game literally made me cry. The ending of Luigi's Mansion 3 is about how so most of these ghosts aren't naturally evil. They're actually being mind controlled by King Boo, and that's something that's been established since the 3DS games. That like most ghosts are not actually like innately evil. They're just kind of neutral and like just living their own lives, and are actually a distinct species within the Mushroom Kingdom.
That raises
like,
so many questions.
yeah, like Boos are one species and other ghosts are another, but they might still be ghosts of dead people. Anyway, but the point is like you when you defeat King Boo, you relinquish all these ghosts from his control, but you've destroyed the hotel in the process, and so all these ghosts are without a home, and they don't really fit in with the average Mushroom Kingdom community. You know, they can't move to a one-room apartment or a one-bedroom apartment in New Dog City, right? So Luigi and all of his
stopping them are New Donkers racist against ghosts or something?
Probably.
What's going on?
The answer is probably ghosts kind of have to live in their own communities. It's very ghettoized. It's very unfortunate, really. Segregation in Mushroom Kingdom. Anyway, but so Luigi.
This got fucking dark.
Yeah, it did.
Luigi and all of his friends band together to rebuild the hotel for the ghosts, and they're working with the ghosts. And it's just like this big sweet montage of everyone getting along and working together. And I'm a very sensitive person by nature, so I'll grant that me crying at that was kind of my own problem, but I would really argue that there is some great story stuff in this game. Also, it genuinely does is like I talked about this before too. Like it does like atmosphere and dread and like actual
we have like
horror
20 seconds
aspects.
left. So
Good. Sorry.
Okay. Demyx, why did Kingdom Hearts 3 make you cry?
Okay, so I'm
so
also
sorry.
very sensitive, and it's Kingdom Hearts. And so I feel like in some way there was no way they were going to wrap up all of the plot threads in a satisfying manner. And a few of them they kind of fell down on, but some of them I think they really delivered. We got Xion back, and I'm always going to cry about Xion. She's the character who was erased from existence, and she's very sweet and did not deserve to be erased from existence. So when she comes back and her theme song plays, I think the music carries a lot in Kingdom Hearts. It's very emotional. It really sells the moment. And I think, despite the fact that I was disappointed in some ways, I think Kingdom Hearts 3 really delivered in others, which is it's some of the best Disney worlds. It's really a love letter to those movies. I didn't expect to like Pirates World because Pirates World was not very good in Kingdom Hearts 2, and it was fantastic.
It's terrible in Kingdom
It's
Hearts 2.
terrible in Kingdom Hearts 2.
Yeah.
It's fantastic in Kingdom Hearts 3. I was dreading getting to it, but it was actually one of my favorites because you get to sail around on a ship and explore little islands. It's like a mini open world, and it's very fun. Like I said, Toy Story World was great. Tangled World was really great. It's gorgeous, looks exactly like the movie, just beautiful. So there was a lot to love.
You're really selling me on this because I can't.
Thank you.
I'm in the midst of like Birth by Sleep right now, And now I just can't wait to get to Kingdom Hearts 3 and like play through something that actually looks like the movies instead of like a really pared down facsimile.
Yeah, I love Birth by Sleep. I think it has some of the best combat and gameplay mechanics, maybe even better than Kingdom Hearts 3. But the worlds, because it originated as a PSP game, the worlds can't match.
They're very scaled down.
Yeah, they just can't match. They did well considering, but yeah, Kingdom Hearts 3 just has these really beautiful worlds. So I think whereas in the big picture, the story conclusions and the pacing are kind of a letdown, a lot of the individual moments are really, really fun. Just swinging around with Rapunzel in her hair and like the Toy Story gang, you get to fight in giant mechas in the toy store, which is pretty cool. Yeah, there's just
That's a really great idea.
yeah, there's a lot of really great stuff in it. It feels like a game that really could have benefited from a little longer because some of these sections feel a little bit longer development cycle, actually, even though it took forever to come out. Because some of the sections feel a bit unfinished, and I think that would have really made a masterpiece. Because what is there, I think, is really strong.
Okay, so let's take a vote. Bones, what are you voting for?
Come on, you know. And I already know I'm losing this, but
Luigi's Mansion 3
yeah,
or
yes,
Kingdom Hearts 3?
yes, I voted for Luigi's Mansion 3. I'll go down with the ship.
Demyx, what are you voting for?
I'm voting for Kingdom Hearts 3.
So DW, you have a lot of power here.
Oh my
What are you
god.
voting for?
I'll vote for Luigi's Mansion 3.
Oh no! DW, don't do that just to be nice to me.
No, I'm not.
I'll feel very pitied. I don't like being
No, I'm
patronized.
not. I actually think it's what you said was really interesting, even though
Okay.
I will play Kingdom Hearts eventually. So
Thank you. And I want to say
Fair.
I really appreciate your passion, Demyx, and
Thank you.
I mean I can at least say Shimomura's music has always been excellent. I can certainly
Oh,
agree
yeah.
with that.
oh yeah,
I mean,
All
I
right.
think you made a great case for Luigi's Mansion 3.
Thank you. I appreciate
Luigi's
that.
Mansion
Likewise.
3 is now in the semis. Okay, let's move on to match number 10, which is the winner of match number 4 versus the winner of match number 7. And that means it's Fire Emblem Three Houses versus the Resident Evil 2 remake. All right, let's debate.
This is gonna be tough because me and DW both really like both of these games.
yeah, we do.
It isn't tough for me.
That's fine. But this is a 4.
This one is actually tough for me because I've played neither of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Three Houses, I think. I had not played a Fire Emblem more than like maybe 10 hours before I would start them and not finish them. And Three Houses just really clicked for me. And I'm not gonna lie, it's partially because they essentially grafted it onto a Persona game.
Oh yeah, I didn't
that's-
talk about really like the RPG mechanics in the previous round, but I think
Oh,
the RPG mechanics are the Persona-esque qualities are the single best thing about the game.
Oh, I love
Truly.
it. Yeah.
just
Isn't it
no,
like,
day
don't
by-
you like play matchmaker with your students and try to get them to date each other?
No, hold on. No, this game significantly tones down the romance stuff. Like
does,
every
yeah.
single romance is a slow burn that only actually starts after the game is over narratively. Like and like I mean, yeah, you can choose favorites in terms of like saying for example, like, oh well, this character has the opportunity to go up to A support with a number of different characters, but I can choose not to if I really want them to specifically like focus on another character. But you can't control them and guide them to the extent that you sometimes did in previous games. There's a lot more of it that's out of your control. Unless you're really micromanaging about just like, I'm putting these characters next to each other in every single battle and shit like that.
Yeah, and
Okay.
I just
So you can't make them
No,
fun.
there's
Got it.
there's a lot less personal life micromanaging for both the player character and the supporting cast. It's much more just about like, I mean, it is about building relationships, but the relationships are less focused on the sexual
Romance.
romantic
Right.
elements and
Yeah, it's more character focus and about
Yeah.
like their issues and personalities than romance and
Exactly.
each other.
And, like,
Yeah,
and
the
as
cast
Cap,
is really likable. Like
it's
kind of in a tropey anime way, but they're really fun.
it's a
I grew very attached to them.
it's really rich character writing, like across the board.
Yeah.
Even characters I don't like I can concede are have a lot of thought put into them. Um, yeah,
So they're like
even
characters you
those.
love to hate almost.
yeah, yeah. I would definitely call Rhea someone I love to hate.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So how's all this compared to Resident Evil 2?
Resident Evil 2 is very well, first off, it's a very different game. It's very short
It's
and
very scaled down in comparison, and like it succeeds in the tightness of that scaled downness generally.
yeah, it's very quick paced and
Although I still think the sewers are a little too much.
No, that's
A little bloated, just like the monsters you're fighting.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I think what it really does well is just the sort of flow of a Resident Evil game. You find these keys or puzzle elements, then you do it, and then you can go to another place and find more keys and puzzle elements, and it just keeps repeating over and over again. I thought the flow of that was just so well done and just very engaging, especially if you're trying to run it as fast as possible, like I did. Like I tried to not speed run it, but try to get the highest possible rank, and it was just such a breathless experience trying to remember all the puzzle elements.
Both these games have really, really strong core gameplay loops and very effectively tie their narrative pacing into the continued satisfaction of those core gameplay loops.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So on that note, let us take a vote. Bones, what are you voting for?
Fire Emblem.
DW, what are you voting for?
Resident Evil 2.
Okay, Demyx, that means you will break this tie.
Yeah, it's
What are you
Fire
voting
Emblem
for?
then.
RE2 Make was the single top seededest game.
Wow.
And we have conquered it.
All right. Bye-bye Resident Evil 2.
Yep.
Congrats to Fire Emblem for making it this far.
Congrats to Fire Emblem for the avocado being too full of fucking weebs. Even
so far, there are only Japanese games in this. Well, I guess Luigi's Mansion 3 was developed in North America.
Next Level is Canadian, and Disco Elysium is made by Eastern Europeans, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say only Japanese games in the semifinals so far.
Yes.
That only applies to Fire Emblem. Luigi's Mansion 3 is Canadian.
Yeah.
Okay. Luigi has always been a secret Canadian. Explains why he's such a loser. I can say that. I'm Canadian. Okay. Quarterfinal number 3, match number 11. Match number 11, I can say words.
Sorry.
A level. Okay. That is the winner of match number 3 versus the winner of match number 1. That means it's Disco Elysium versus Control. This is going to be interesting. This is going to be an interesting matchup. I don't know what's going to come out on top. I actually can't tell with this group where their preferences and allegiances are going to lie. So I have not played Disco Elysium, but I really liked Control.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't say much more about Control without spoiling the experience, beyond the fact that I think it's not the most original game on the planet, but I think it's the best possible distillation of that kind of gameplay, that kind of very dynamic shooter combat. Most third-person shooters are really either duck and cover and just pop out from behind cover and then shoot, or you end up playing the original Max Payne games where you're just shooting all the time and it doesn't let up, and then you need to use your bullet time power to kind of get through the more complicated or difficult parts. Control, I think, is the ideal mixture of those styles of gameplay, where you can retreat if you need to, but just hiding behind cover all the time will eventually kill you because the monsters will get to you.
Yeah. One of the things that's really refreshing about Control's combat is how much it's about zipping around and dodging, and not about hiding and cover. For third-person shooters, that's such a fucking turnaround that I'm grateful for. That makes it a lot more dynamic.
Extremely dynamic,
Yeah.
but not in a way that just makes cover meaningless.
Yeah, that's
It
true.
it like manages to marry some of what you've learned about like your previous cover-based shooters to something a lot more dynamic and entertaining.
So what I'd say about Control is that while every single power when you get it feels good, um, I got tired of a lot of them more quickly than I would have expected.
Yeah, me
So
too.
the one other Remedy game I've played was Alan Wake, and like my biggest problem with Alan Wake is how repetitive the combat gets, and I don't think Control completely avoids that problem. It makes dynamic it like it adds a lot to the combat versus Alan Wake. Like there's a lot more going on in a way that's actively like exciting and engaging and not just too many things to focus on. But it still, I would argue, gets like pretty repetitive and exhausting. And like I haven't touched Control in a long time, like since the last time I posted about playing in the games threads because I
For me, it's mostly just like I felt like I just only had to use launch, and that was like the main like solution to everything. Like just throw
I
stuff.
also I also don't think like the Metroidvania of it like being able to go back to a place with a new power or and stuff like that. I think that's mostly well done, but like the pacing of it is a little off and like correspondingly I don't think the progression of like the progression system of getting new powers is very well paced or well maintained in general.
Yeah, I agree.
I was stuck in a position where I didn't even know side quests were available, nor did it occur to me that I needed to do those side quests just to get like basic powers that people were talking about for months. So I went through a lot of the game like pretty underpowered and underleveled because I completely missed that the side quests were there, and I enjoyed those generally once I got to them. But if it was still a little too late for like taking away from the joy of the experience.
Yeah,
There's like one side quest early on that gives you a really key power, and
Yeah,
it's completely
it's
optional.
completely missable, and that's insane.
Yeah, but it's like one of the key powers that you use throughout the
Yeah,
game.
exactly.
So as for Disco Elysium, very different kind of game.
Yes.
I know DW, you've played it, you really enjoyed
Mhm.
it. Anything else you want to say about it?
Yeah, I think one of the coolest things about it personally is that like, okay, for me personally, I'm not the biggest fan of like Western RPG combat for the most part, and they pretty much took that out completely and just replaced it with dialogue, which is my favorite part, and it just feels so pure and like has a clear vision to it that, it's all about the world and these characters and like how you role play. Like, I think one of the interesting things is I don't really role play in games that much. I just pick what I think. But in this game, you kind of have to lean into that because based on like your money or your stats, you're gonna have to like say certain things or that you might not usually say. So it's kind of like you sort of build this character up as you go along, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, plus like while there's no active combat, you do experience combat as
It's
a
like a
like
dialogue
skill
sequence,
yeah,
yeah.
a skill stat dialogue experience where like I won't talk a lot of it, especially since this is secondhand info, but I understand that there's an encounter in the game where there's this fucking huge ass muscle bound guy and he's like a neo-Nazi
Yeah,
and statistically, it's very unlikely that you're going to have the combat stats to actually take him on. So you have to figure out other ways to get around him to endure his disgusting ideology and
yeah,
like try to reason him out of it and stuff like that. But you can, even though like you'll be told like you're most likely to fail it, you can still do those combat roles and the variety and uniqueness of scenarios for like describing failed combat and failed actions in general is really cool.
yeah. Failure is actually
All
more
right.
interesting than like passing a skill check sometimes because it leads to like a lot of interesting dialogue options that you wouldn't normally get.
Yeah.
So there's no like game over kind of scenario where you just like die,
You have health
or
and you have like psyche, like stamina, like mental fortitude, and if that goes down the way you can die, but you always usually have like so many healing items that pretty much is a non-issue. It usually goes down if you
okay.
say something like embarrassing or whatever.
That's incredible. Okay, let's
Anxiety,
take a
the
vote.
game.
Oh yeah. Um, let's take a vote.
Mhm.
Bones, what are you voting
Yeah,
for?
I'm gonna go just go Elysium.
Oh wow. Demyx, where are you voting for?
I didn't play either of these. I definitely am more sold on Disco Elysium.
Okay, and DW, where are you voting for?
Disco Elysium.
Unanimous.
Yay!
Oh
Our
wow.
second
Yeah,
unanimous vote.
the only reason I
Third
haven't
unanimous
played it
vote.
is
Yeah.
because it's not available on, it's only on Windows, and that's like the one
Yeah,
thing I don't have.
yeah. That's
It's
super
gonna
sad.
be on
Yep.
Switch soon, I
Yeah,
Yeah.
believe,
Yep.
yeah, and PS4.
Yeah.
and PS4 and Xbox
Yeah,
One. Okay, yeah,
yeah.
it's
They're
gonna be
yeah
everywhere
they're
soon.
they're doing the full
That's
current
good.
console generation, and they'll probably simul-release. So whenever that happens, we'll all be able to enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
Anyway,
right. So, congrats to Disco Elysium. Our final quarterfinal is Baba Is You versus Super Mario Maker 2. So, what do y'all think of those games?
um,
This is actually a hard one for me.
Yeah.
yeah, that's really tough. Both of them are very, very creative, exciting games. Um,
I
and
don't know
and
because
ar
Baba Is You.
arguably,
Sorry, go ahead.
like we've talked about how like unique and original and all these things Bob as You is, and it totally is. But one could also make the argument that like Mario Maker as a series is one of the most self-subversive things Nintendo has ever made, and there's a value in that too. That like that you're being given the keys to the kingdom like directly from the company itself to do Kaizo levels and just completely fuck with the bones of Mario as much as you like to.
Yeah, I think in the first round I voted for Baba Is You over Link's Awakening because it was a lot more original, and Link's Awakening is a remake, even though I love
It's
Link's Awakening.
it's a
And I
wonderful
think
remake.
it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
No, yeah, but I think if I apply the same logic here, I would have to go for Baba Is You again because Super Mario Maker 2
Yeah.
is, a great, I'm sure it's great. I haven't played it. Like, I have
Yeah.
no doubt that's great and creative, but it's also building off of Super Mario Maker 1.
Exactly.
What does it do that's unique to Mario Maker 2? Because I'm not terribly familiar with
It
that.
has it has the 3D world level style where you can do like clear pipes and stuff, and I think it has a couple new gimmicks, but yeah, that's pretty much it.
Slopes.
Yeah, slopes.
That's the big
Yes.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah. The smaller like QOL improvements like the slopes was a big
Mhm.
one. I heard a lot of people actually complaining about the implementation of the 3D world theme. That's like that by like like as the aesthetic and like unique like enemies and stuff you can put in, but because it's limited to the 2D plane, it doesn't really. It feels like an approximation rather than like really like getting the feel of that particular game and its experience in the same way that you can do with the actual 2D ones.
Yeah, I'll agree. I
Yeah.
feel like the movement feels off in the 3D world things because it's clearly, I guess, meant for like, the gimmicky, like fast-paced actions of 3D world, which doesn't really translate that well compared to like New Super Mario Brothers or Mario World. So, yeah.
I really wonder if they'll do a dedicated 3D Mario Maker at some point. That would be in
Yeah.
some ways like a lot more complex and difficult to design than the 2D ones, but that would be really exciting.
I'd play that for like the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I feel like that has to be an idea that has been floated at Nintendo HQ. It's just
Sure.
probably not easily feasible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Another thing you could say
as
is that
for
both of these games are kind of like about the experience of programming on some level, right?
Hmm.
Like it's
yeah,
about design, like the mechanic of the blank is blank and all that stuff in Baba Is You is a is a translation of of like coding programming in a way that even I can understand, and I'm a Luddite practically. um,
yeah, it's for what I really enjoy about Baba Is You is the idea of like a world governed by unintuitive rules, right?
Right.
Like a lot of Baba Is You a lot of the challenge is overcoming your own intuition
yeah.
to do something that appears sometimes obvious in retrospect, right? But it's like trying to make you think of walls not as walls,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Or of like turning a flower into a teleportation device, something like that.
Yeah. There's a lot of like of yeah. It's about breaking rules and rewriting rules and for certain kinds of brains that actually comes very naturally, and more power to them that you can just immediately
Yeah.
like filter to this logic and not like the innate or assumed logic of the setting you're presented. Um,
Yeah, if you're used to doing like abstract math where labels don't are meaningless and everything's just an abstract object, then
exactly.
yeah, information theorists must love this game.
Yeah.
No such thing as labels in information theory. Yeah, so for me, it was a really interesting experience that I think gets a little too obtuse when you get into the later stages.
Oh
But
yeah.
I think
This game has an
the-
insane difficulty curve at a certain point.
yeah,
I do think it's completable. I think it's totally completable for like the majority of people who try to play it. For people who struggle with it, I would recommend what I've
you
talked
can
about
reach
before.
the end credits.
Yes.
Let's say
Yeah.
that.
Oh yeah, no, there's a
a lot more to the game.
Yeah, that's the
end
thing. Like,
credits.
yeah, the game gives you a main ending, and there's so much more that is optional in the same way that like the strawberries in Celeste are optional. Those things are kind of like they really are for the sake of the degree of challenge and complexity. So yeah, ignore them if you want to. But if you're struggling with the main game, I'd really recommend playing it with a second player, so you can like really like talk through your thought process and bounce ideas off each other. I think that's really
All right.
beneficial to the game.
We should take a vote.
Yes.
Bones, what are you voting for?
Yeah, this is really tough. I do have to go with Baba Is You because it's a genuinely remarkable achievement that this was a puzzle game that I personally played for dozens of hours and consistently found satisfying and enjoyable, and I completed to the extent that I did.
All right, DW, what are you voting for?
I think I'll pick Mario Maker 2 because that's the one I played. But you guys do make Baba Z sound very interesting. I want to check it out soon.
Okay, and Demyx, what are you voting for?
I think I explained my
bet this
reasoning
time.
for Baba Is You, so yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I'm voting for.
All right, bye-bye Super Mario Maker 2. You did well, but not well enough.
Yes. But we are
And
coming down to 2 indies and 2 Nintendo games.
Wow. Yeah.
yeah, very on brand for the avocado.
Yeah.
Okay, let's kick it up to the semifinals. In the first semifinal, we have the winner of match 11 versus the winner of match 10. That means it's Disco Elysium versus Fire Emblem Three Houses. I've played neither of these games, so I have no dog in this fight. Y'all fight it out all you
Both
want.
these games were able to get unanimous votes, but which one can surpass the other's firewall?
Yeah.
I mean,
know.
I only voted for Disco Elysium because it sounds interesting. I haven't actually played it.
and it was competing against something of lesser engagement at the
Yeah.
time. Now it's competing against something that you, me, and DW will love.
I am all in on Fire Emblem Three Houses, so
I'm a little more torn, but I'll probably go Fire Emblem because again, I played 150 fucking hours of this game. I love it so much.
it's
Both of these are games that I wish I'd had time to play last.
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
say that.
Extremely valid. Yeah.
I really wish I
Yeah.
could have played Disco.
We no longer have games in the bracket that I don't wish I had played.
Yeah. For sure.
What's funny is like I played
So-
both of these games like around at the same time pretty much because I got them both through like the holidays.
Yeah,
And
DW, you've got to be the real spoiler here, really.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because like you can see like the differences in like their writing styles. Like one is very like lighthearted and kind of like theatrical, I would say. Like in Three Houses, like they're all doing like these very fun and energetic different like scenarios with the support conversations, whereas Disco Elysium is very like I'd say literary, if that makes sense. Like it's very like internal. It's all about like your thought process and like how the world is like works and like how ideologies are like shaped by that, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Three Houses has the JRPG writing where you have your, your cute, friendly teenage sword characters that you're talking to, and you're talking to them about their personal problems, and then you send them out to battle and they're cutting people's heads off and gloating about it. And
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
in,
The tonal
you're just
dissonance.
sending Bernadetta into battle. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, also like more broadly, like it's definitely a reliable trope for this game in particular that like every single character will have some kind of traumatic background, and
oh
like
my
it will,
gosh,
yeah,
yes.
it will very much come down to like how does this particular trauma define these personality traits. And
Mhm.
like, yeah, there's one could criticize that on a writing level to some extent, but I think the realization of it is very vivid and effective. And it like at least sometimes transcends like the tropiness of that combination of like main personality traits, traumatic backstory to explain personality traits. I think Edelgard's one of the single best written characters of 2019.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, she's insanely complex. She's way more complex than a lot of novel characters I've read. And she's a real like she Wolfman Jew, I was just talking about this with him a couple of days ago. He phrased it really well that part of Edelgard's route is about the challenge to the player of how willing are you to empathize? How far on a limb can you go out on to empathize with someone? Because like Edelgard as a character is full of contradictions and negative aspects in terms of like that she's willing to work with people that are bad and that she sometimes does make mistakes or actions that are pretty actively objectionable. But understand like not just like understanding her reasons behind it, but understanding like the full portrait of how she is coming to the judgment of making these decisions, how she balances them out in her mind, and like how she sees herself and how that informs her decisions.
Yeah,
Like,
I found her really easy to empathize with, to be
mhm.
honest. Maybe that's just me.
That's
Because
I
even though she does do some very questionable things.
Yeah.
Because you can really see where she's coming from. She's very driven.
I mean, I'm
Um,
completely with you, but I guess I'd like to clarify what I meant by that a little bit. Sorry that, yeah, we're spending a lot of time on this game, and only 5 minutes to discuss both of them. But like what that meant was like that Edelgard doesn't like she doesn't put a lot into like really trying to convince the characters around her to be on her side. Like she's committed
yeah.
to doing what she's going to do no matter what, and she's kind of so prepared for rejection / afraid of rejection that she doesn't really bother to reach out in the first place. So it's up to you to do the groundwork of recognizing that she's coming from a good heart and like doing something that will probably be better for the world overall.
Mhm.
Because she's not going to convince you herself necessarily. That's what I meant. Yeah.
All right. Any
That's
words people want to say about Disco
Again,
Elysium?
that's really great writing. And Disco Elysium sounds like it's incredibly written too. This is such a hard pair, y'all.
Yeah. I will give like a short content warning for Disco Elysium in that it has some sort of like talks of like alcoholism and suicide, but also like there's like communist factions and fascist factions that are racist, and there's also like
Yeah.
the first character you encounter is like this drugged up kid that like is really mean, shouts like homophobic slurs at you. They're censored, but like it's a very like hard game.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah, that's it's not light reading.
Yeah,
no,
no,
for
no.
Right.
sure. But presumably it earns that tone, relatively speaking.
Yeah, I think it does.
Yeah.
Personally.
Yeah.
All right, let's vote. DW, what are you voting for?
I'm voting for Disco Elysium.
All right, Bones, what are you voting for?
This is so hard. It's insane that I'm like this close to choosing a game I haven't played. It's really impressive, even at this stage of things, to be capable of that. But yeah, I have to lean Fire Emblem.
All right, and Demyx, what are you voting for?
Yeah, it's going to be Fire Emblem then.
Yeah.
Sorry, Disco Elysium. You sound really
You-
interesting.
Yes, you sound wonderful, and you very much earned getting this far, like
Yeah.
undeniably.
Definitely.
All right, that means Fire Emblem Three Houses is gone all the way to the finals, and Disco Elysium is going to be competing in the bronze medal match against the loser of this match, the second semifinal, which is Luigi's Mansion 3 versus Baba Is You.
And I thought Kingdom Hearts was an uphill battle.
All right. Luigi's Mansion 3 versus Baba Is You. This is going to be a weird matchup for sure. I've only played one of these games. I've played Baba Is You. I think I made a case for why it deserves to, I guess, go all the way now.
Most definitely.
One of the most innovative puzzle games in years. A nice mixture of puzzles that teach you the game's mechanics and then puzzles that completely break your brain.
Another good thing for accessibility with this game, and it doesn't, I guess, come from the game itself, but it is very fun and charming. It speaks to like what the game inspires in its players. Is that there is a Steam guide called Baba is Hint Not Solution, and it's all about just give you just like a taste of what the right path for solving a given puzzle is, and it's very much in the spirit of the game in the sense of like talking in a kind of like cryptic, quirky way that like is effectively communicative without just like telling you too much or spelling anything out. It engages with your critical thinking skills still, even as a guide, and that's like awesome.
Another great accessibility feature is that you don't need to complete every puzzle to beat the game. If there's a puzzle you're stuck on, you can usually complete another puzzle as a substitute.
Yeah, exactly.
You just need to collect enough resources to unlock the next set of puzzles.
And that quote unquote main ending, the credits ending we talked about before, opens very early. You probably won't be prepared for it when you first unlock it because it's based on like effectively combining and like really taking everything you'll have learned up to an extent in the game and like just putting them all together in a really, really satisfying, conclusive way, like, in the same way that like a final Mario level will be like throwing everything you've learned at you in one like big gauntlet. It's a very effective version of that. So that's great.
Right, let's say nice things about Luigi's Mansion 3.
Yes, I can. I mean, I'm always going to say nice things about Luigi's Mansion 3. Like we talked about this multiple rounds ago that like the earlier entries in the series like kind of get in its own way on a mechanical level.
Yeah.
And like so that's my defense for this being a sequel is that this is where like the core mechanics are truly fully refined, arguably, and that itself counts for something, that's realizing the potential that has been in a series for literally 20 years. And again, on top of that, like it's an incredible amount of variety and creativity and more like writing things. Egad, who was kind of a non-entity in the previous games, is now like very firmly specifically characterized, and he's the fucking worst, like in a really entertaining way. He's an amoral businessman whose relationship to Luigi is that he wants to exploit him. He wants to take money from him and use him to test his machines and inventions and all this stuff without compensating for him. So he's doubly exploiting him, and it's like it plays in a very effective like kind of Futurama like dark humor, and I really liked that.
Wait, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah. Sure.
Does Luigi hum the theme again?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, he does. Yeah.
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 Okay, so on that note, let us take a vote.
Yeah, my most spirited explanation of why Luigi's Mansion 3 is a good game was when it was up against Kingdom Hearts. So I can't totally live up to that, but I hope you can still like look forward to playing it eventually, all of you at least.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's a game I actually want to play. It's not like there are games on this list that I have no interest in playing. Sorry, Shadowbringers. But like there are games on this list that I really want to play and just haven't had time. Luigi's Mansion 3 is one of them. So let us vote. Bones, what are you voting for?
I think Baba Is You is a masterpiece, truly. If you want to go like a dumb quantification level, it is in my top 5. But Luigi's Mansion 3 has been my number one with a bullet for like 5 months.
Okay, so that's a vote for Luigi's
Luigi's
Mansion 3.
Mansion 3
Demyx, what
is
are you
a
voting
game I'll
for?
probably play like at least once a year to completion for the rest of my life, is how much I love it.
That's awesome.
Oh. Demyx, what are you voting for?
I legitimately don't know. I didn't play either of these.
That's okay. You have to vote anyway, because this is a
Can
fake
DW
democracy.
go first?
Yeah. Yeah, Merv
DW can go
Merv
first.
is
What are you
already
voting for?
selectively abstaining unless there's a tie to break. Like, we can't have 2 abstentions out of
Yeah.
4.
I think I'm gonna vote for Baba Is You just because of all the weird concepts and how they all like change the way you think
Work
about
together.
the game.
Okay, so that means we're down to Luigi's Mansion 3, Baba Is You. Demyx, you
I-
make the choice.
Mostly because I feel like I would probably vote for Baba Is You, but Bones made such a great case for Luigi's Mansion 3. I feel really bad about it. But you guys also made a good case for Baba Is You.
Well, that's very
Um,
flattering, but yeah, I won't take it personally because I think the world of both of these games. So
okay. I'm going to vote for Baba Is You for having the more
Yeah.
interesting concept behind it.
That's
Although I
perfect.
do totally respect the idea that Luigi's Mansion 3 was the first to refine the original game's concept. I think that's really valid.
All right, that means we have in our bronze medal match Luigi's Mansion 3 versus Disco Elysium, and in the finals we have Fire Emblem versus Baba Is You. Let us move on to the bronze medal
this
match.
is such an incredibly avocadian like last 6 rounds.
I know. I love it.
Yeah, that's true.
Try to line up.
This is a great lineup of games. Let us first do the bronze medal match. Okay, so Disco Elysium versus Luigi's Mansion 3. These are games that are really, really hard to compare.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know how you
they're
compare
incredibly different, and also a lot of us have not played at least one of them, and often both of them.
Yeah.
I've played neither. I can't say anything.
Yeah, like you can
about-
respect them both from afar and say like you want to check them out, but it's still it's tough.
Yeah, a lot of my 2019 list was games that nobody else played.
Yeah, which is also super valid, even though I dunked on Manifold Garden earlier. I'm sorry for that, but also like I was sitting on those feelings for months without like venting them at all to the one
It's
other
all
person
good.
I know who's played it. So
That's fair. I actually played a lot of games that people liked in 2019. I'm surprised Sayonara Wild Hearts didn't make the
I
bracket.
wish Sayonara made it, and I adore that game.
I was really surprised to hear Slay the Spire in the honorable mentions and not as part of the bracket.
Oh yeah,
'cause
that one's
I know a
been
bunch of
yeah.
people are playing it, and it would have
Yeah.
been easily in one of my top games of
I
2019.
think it was like we chose the cutoff of top 3, and it was one of those games that was often like 4 or 5 or 6, and that was what killed it.
Aw.
I should have filed a list of games because it would have been in my top 3.
Damn. Oh yeah, it totally would have made it, and then it would have been
Oh
APAT.
no!
APAT only got in because we were one short, and I liked
Oh
it.
no!
So I quote unquote randomly selected as the extra one to round out the numbers. Sorry.
Nice. Nice.
I'm very transparent. Anyway.
Transparent ex post, but that's okay. Yeah, so Disco Elysium, what's attracted me to it, kind of over Luigi's Mansion 3 at the moment, is that it's taking a lot of stuff that I don't like about the traditional CRPG. Like, I don't like traditional CRPG combat at all. Don't kill me.
That's perfectly valid.
It's taking all the stuff that I don't like about that genre and replacing it with stuff that I do like, which is talking to weirdos. So
I really respect that.
Yeah, that's very respectable. I have one more thing with Luigi's Mansion. I'm sorry. I could talk about this game for ages.
What is that thing?
That thing in this case is, so remember how earlier I talked about how I prefer fixed cameras to player controlled cameras, and that it's kind of a shame that the former like really fell by the wayside
Yeah, I
in
agree.
game design. Luigi's Mansion 3 uses fixed cameras, and they're really really well used. Like they're in the sense of like the early Resident Evils and Silent Hills. It's used effective on that front, and like you're you have a certain amount of information when you start, and like the camera it's still moving with you, it's still following you, but it's from a fixed, like, it's a fourth wall perspective. Like, yeah, like each room is like the three walls that you're contained by, and then the fourth wall is the camera. And like it uses that really well for again for building dread, and for like hiding enemies, and like not in, it's in annoying ways, ways that are like thrilling and exciting, that you can get like ambushed and you have to react suddenly. But like it's very easy to react suddenly, so that's not a problem. Um, and just generally, I like. It's not just that this is a concept I appreciate, but it's implemented extremely well just across the board. It contributes and benefits to every part of the game, and I think that counts for a lot. That contributes to both the tone and the gameplay.
So I guess that's what Luigi's Mansion 3 and Disco Elysium both have in common. Fixed cameras.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they both contain a cast of weirdos, right?
Oh, they totally do. Yeah, I'll like
Which video game is full of just normal people? That's what I
Yeah.
want to know.
fair question.
Which video game is like, wearing white t-shirts and Wrangler jeans? That's what I want to
Call
know.
of Duty.
Okay, so I guess we can vote now
Yeah,
on Disco Elysium versus Luigi's Mansion 3. Who's putting DW? What do you vote
I'm voting for Disco Elysium. I love it so much.
for? And Bones, what are you
Man is
voting for?
committed to that ticket, and I respect the shit out of that. Yeah, Luigi's Mansion 3 still. So, but again,
Demyx.
like third or fourth place are both really good. It's okay.
Demyx, you determine who wins bronze medal.
You keep putting me in this position. I haven't played either of these.
Because I know who has opinions on
Right.
the first. Like, I know or DW.
Exactly.
So I keep putting you
I'm
on the spot.
voting for Disco Elysium.
Excellent.
Partially
Yeah.
because I've listened to the soundtrack a bunch, and
Oh, the
it's really
soundtrack's
excellent.
amazing. Yeah.
It's amazing. So it did give me that, and just the mechanics sound so interesting, and I really lament not having had the hardware to play it last year.
Yeah.
Well, you'll finally get a chance to play it probably this year, whenever it releases.
I won't have time this year, but yeah, theoretically I could.
I completely feel you on Disco Elysium though, and I'm very happy for it to have done as well as it did, because yeah, like being restricted to just Windows and not even Mac has really limited its audience for the time being, and it's wonderful that this game that like took like 15 years of combined of writing and then actually developing of a very small first time team, like it's wonderful that this game has had the impact that it's had in spite of a lot going against it.
It's also
very obviously a
self-published, too,
passion project,
which is incredible.
Which is
Yes.
great.
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
also
self-published.
very
Sure.
I said it can be like dark sometimes, but it's also really like sensitive. Like even like you see like these sort of mean spirited kids, if you like talk to them more, it just kind of shows like why they are the way they are, and you start to empathize with them, and then you can like sort of not friends, but like you get into their like perspective, and I think that's really interesting.
Okay, so now let's queue up our final match of the tournament, which is it's honestly the only reason I did that was I was scrolling up to the document where I had the bracket, and I was like, I need to stall. The final match is Fire Emblem Three Houses versus Baba Is You.
Can anyone challenge these twin runaway freight trains?
I'm still all in on Fire Emblem.
Well, we have that vote.
Yeah.
I'm all in on Baba, but only because I haven't played Fire Emblem.
Yeah.
So this would be easy for me if I were voting.
Merv, I mean, it's the finals. I know there's 4 of us, so we could theoretically tie, but I don't know. I think you should participate in the finals, like just for the drama of it.
Yeah.
All right, but then we'll have to like rescind my vote when there's inevitably a
Well,
tie.
I mean, we can treat the tie as like an opportunity to just like really sell one person on converting, which I think is fun as hell. But we've avoided.
It's gonna be hard to convert me to a game I haven't
Yes,
played.
no, I don't expect it to be you.
Okay. What do these games have in common?
Oh fuck! Not a lot.
Wow.
What
I can't
one
think
could
of
really
anything.
argue. One could even argue that like Three Houses is an accomplishment in excess. It's successfully very excessive in gameplay running time and and
think-
like in writing and all these things. And Bob As You is all about like just the strip down of these handful of rule mechanics, and the aesthetic is also very stripped down.
I have a
It's
very
still a very long game though.
True.
Like it's 30
Yeah.
hours.
No,
to
it's very
get to
long,
the
especially
credits.
for a puzzle game.
I have a very meta thing that I think they kind of have in common in that they're both, to me, very kind of exemplary of the trends we were seeing throughout the 2010s. Where Baba's You is a very stripped down indie game that involves programming, and we've seen a ton of that. The stripped down indie puzzler was
And it's
a
a
big deal.
very
And it's a
unique,
very pure,
and pure, like effective, manifestation of that.
Whereas-
Yeah, it
pattern.
seems like Else Heartbreak and
Right.
Continue 987.
Yeah.
And Fire Emblem
it's very
Three
much in that
Houses is also very exemplary of the trends of the 2010s in a different way, where we were seeing a lot of like the social link type mechanics where you get to talk to
Yeah.
people, especially in the RPG space, has been a big deal. Having lots of little systems in excess has been a huge trend. So it felt
I
very
think-
of its time, but in a good way.
Yeah.
A lot of games have sort of struggled on that front.
do.
They have a lot of different systems, but they don't integrate together all that
Right.
well. The last game I played where they really integrated together well was what's it called, Prey, where all the different like the crafting system and the upgrade system, they all played into each other in interesting ways. And I like to see when games can make disparate systems interact in a way that's meaningful, where you're kind of strategizing on a micro level of what decisions do I make moment to moment, and strategizing on a bigger meta level of what decisions do I make in the long term to kind of optimize how I get through this experience.
Yeah, one thing about Three Houses is you're kind of making decisions on a strategic level, but also, maybe it's just me, on a personal level where you don't necessarily it's a pretty easy game unless you play on like the hardest difficulties. So you don't really need to min-max. So you can just choose your favorites and pick them, and so
Yeah,
there's a lot
it's
of different
like,
ways to
why-
go about it.
I'll say I talked about this back in February when we first started. I found it pretty challenging even on normal difficulty.
Yeah.
I mean I'm someone who's very new to like tactics and strategy gameplay, and that's certainly a part of it, and also just like what my brain lends itself most naturally to. I can concede that, but I also think like not just people.
Demyx is like a hardcore gamer TM.
Yes.
What?
Yeah. You're relatively new to Fire Emblem, but I would say like there are other aspects that give you the advantage over me and like coming naturally to this gameplay. I would argue. I don't know.
Because it's a Persona game in disguise, is that why?
Yeah, I mean because of the JRPG stuff, perhaps.
Yeah.
So I adore both of these games, as I've made clear. I will say I think between the two of them, I would say that one has like a pretty notable, like for me, like flaw that drags it down a bit more, which is that's influences where I'm leaning, and that's that. So again, I love this game. I just talked for way too long about how I think Edelgard's amazing and all that stuff, but like I think Fire Emblem has a legit design flaw in its commitment to the idea that you're supposed to replay it, that like to the extent that like key narrative details are exclusive between routes, and also like very iconic and like various like satisfying and well built like battle designs are exclusive to certain routes over others, and like And it's I think asking too much of the audience to say that like to truly get everything you can out of this game, you have to play it for hundreds of hours.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Several
that's
places.
fair.
I don't think that's fair to the player.
It works on like a more scaled down level where you play something like the Somnium Files, which takes about 30 hours to play through, where you have to go through all the routes. But if it's like a 90-hour experience or a 120-hour experience, that becomes a lot.
Yeah.
I think the flip side is each I only played the Black Eagles because my life got upended. And it was a really complete game. Like,
Oh yeah, no,
even
I
though
don't dispute
I'm clearly missing out on the other routes, but I
Yeah.
feel like if
Yeah,
that was all that had existed, I would feel very
I agree.
much satisfied.
I think each route is effectively self-contained and satisfying enough on its own merits. But if you even for a second become aware of certain things that you're missing out on, it will really aggravate you. Was my experience at least.
One
That's
one thing about Fire Emblem that I don't think it was brought up. So real quick, amazing soundtrack. Just because I
That's
said that for Disco
Yes.
Elysium, it is an amazing soundtrack. One of my
It is.
favorites of last year.
Yeah, the music's really good. For a game that's like I've compared this game to like the best of BioWare occasionally. Like I've said it's like what if the whole Mass Effect trilogy was one game? But it's on a much lower production and presentation level than a BioWare RPG, especially ones produced post EA. But it like is able to transcend that through like the degree of
Yes.
polish on like again like cutscene writing and like music and other things like that. Like it transcends those limitations by and large, and I think that certainly counts for a lot.
Yeah, it's really lo-fi.
Yeah.
It's really, really lo-fi, but it doesn't really hurt it because they make it work. It works for the gameplay that they're presenting.
Yeah.
Yeah, Japanese major titles tend to be produced by smaller studios on smaller budgets. You get very few games in like the Kojima Productions or Square Enix Final Fantasy team kind of range,
Also,
which rival the Western AAA studios in scope and polish.
Also, something that's crazy about this game is that although Intelligent Systems had they were completely in control of the narrative design and were in a supervisory role, the actual like the vast majority of like boots on the ground production was Koei Tecmo, and yeah, like so not the guys that have been making the series generally for a long time, and yeah, new to in some ways new to its mechanics and designs and all this stuff, and they still made a game that was generally like very well embraced by both new players and longtime players alike.
I think sometimes you need that fresh outside perspective to make something really
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Especially for a series that's been running for 30 years now.
Yeah.
All right, let us take the final vote. Since apparently I have to vote now, I can no longer abstain.
I'm sorry.
My immunity has been lifted. My vote's for Baba is
Yes.
you. TW, what are you voting for?
I'm voting for Fire Emblem because it made me feel lots of feelings.
Okay. Demyx, what are you
I'm
voting
voting for Fire Emblem.
God, I
Okay,
set this
and
I set
Bones,
this
what are you
fucking trap for
voting?
myself. I'm voting for Baba, so now we're tied and we have to talk a little longer. I'm sorry. I think it's worth it though.
for? Okay.
I really don't think you're going to
So-
convince me off of Fire Emblem, so
Yeah.
Okay.
It's going to be hard to shift me from Baba Azul to Fire Emblem because I haven't played Fire
Yeah,
Emblem.
I'm perhaps the most like susceptible to being moved off of where I currently am. So go for it.
Edelgard would want you to vote for Fire Emblem,
I
and
think-
she's very determined.
That's very true, and sincerely I respect it as an argument because as I thoroughly demonstrated, Guard means a lot to me. But I would argue that's also emotional manipulation. Make a different argument.
I mean, if we can emotionally manipulate people, Demyx, do you want to betray your fellow coders?
Yes, absolutely. Programmers, like I'm a programmer,
Programmer
and
sucks.
I hate myself. So yeah, totally.
Okay, fine. Go do this betrayal. Okay, but Baba is so cute,
very
and
cute.
Kiki is also very
I
cute.
mean, Fire
Also,
Emblem
the
is
game-
also cute.
Fire Emblem
Oh,
is
yeah.
cute. Like
Yeah.
that's
Cute.
perfect.
Like
Well,
you
so Baba
have-
is you is a
but-
pun. It,
Exactly,
Baba
it's a
is a
pun. You
sheep,
can't.
and its name is Baba, and its Baba is you, like a female sheep. And that's amazing.
It's a pun. Exactly. Yeah, that's all I can do to sell Baba as you.
Fire Emblem has tea time. That's an
I will
like tea.
concede that the tea time sequences are a good way of like making stuff like recently like the 3DS games is like mini games of like, oh, I'm using the microphone to blow on the person I'm talking to
yeah.
is happening there. Like tea time is a way to make those kind of things so I can experience them and not hate myself and hate the game while doing it. And you
Yeah.
still have the creepy like camera thing, but like it's a very good job of making it like accessible and toned down and just like more like more
It's like
satisfying.
in the Yakuza
More
games
satisfying
where you have to
people.
watch like essentially softcore porn videos to get an achievement, and then when you get the achievement, it's like the achievement is called "I did this for the achievement."
It is a little bit like that, but yeah, again in this case, it's effectively married to what is like, you know, like what for the analogy I made, like, you know, like a cutscene with like in your quarters with Garrus or whoever, and like you're getting points with them by saying the right things. Like it's, you know, it's a deviation of that same
Watching
formula.
porn restores Kiryu's health. So.
Point taken.
This is not about Yakuza, though. This is about Fire Emblem.
I
and
do
Baba
look
is
forward
you.
to talking about Yakuza more. Yeah. I'm sorry. Like, I know the easy thing would be for you to just rescind your vote and Fire Emblem wins, but I like the idea of like of having to like
Fighting.
make the argument for it. Like, and like we're almost done, and it hasn't gone too long, so it's okay to take a little bit longer, isn't it?
I do think it's interesting how Fire Emblem like doesn't have like a true like quote unquote true ending where everyone sort of like kisses and makes up and they're all together to fight a big bad. I think that's
Yes.
I
Yeah,
think
it's.
you
Sorry,
can
you
go.
finish it. No, you finish.
Yeah, I just think just having that like inability to like, you know, make it like a compromise sort of is like really interesting because you know you have all these like people that have these like hard, you know, these hard positions that they're sticking to and they can't really like see eye to eye, so it sort of leads to that tragedy of it.
Yeah, it's very committed to its narrative vision, and not compromise it in the vein of like, again, I keep making this analogy, but like at the end of Dragon Age 2, where you fight both end bosses, no matter which faction you aligned with, which is pure narrative cowardice as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Like this game never like it compromises itself in other ways, arguably, but it never compromises itself on that front. It's very committed to the idea that like you will be with one person and you will have to be against another person, and you can't just make everyone happy and make yourself completely perfect and no blood on your hands. And I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I think that's just some more
That's
interesting.
actually a really convincing argument in favor of Fire Emblem because I think like you said about Dragon Age 2, it wimps out on the key narrative point of like having to take a
this
side.
game it's a game that's willing to have one of your companions murder hundreds of people, but it's cowardly in its climax anyway, and that's almost impressive. And its contradictoriness.
There's a lot I could say about Dragon Age 2, but we'll save that for another time.
That's for GOTY 2011.
It's Dragon Age 2 is a game that I think was at first underrated and now has in retrospect become vastly overrated.
Yeah.
But we don't have to talk about that right now.
Point is like commitment to artistic vision, commitment to like following through on what you're offering as a choice, as a story, as a character, all of that.
I think that kind of convinces me.
Oh shit!
Because I haven't played any games that really like commit to a vision of your choice. Like so many games take the path of they want you to experience everything because nobody wants their work to go
Yeah.
unnoticed. And a game that commits to actually making you stick with the decision that you've sided with a group or a faction, and you have to face the consequences, that is appealing to me. So I'm gonna switch my vote, and I guess Fire Emblem Three
Holy
Houses
shit!
Yeah.
wins.
What a
the
plot
tournament.
twist. So to reiterate,
So-
our Gamescast GOTY 2019 top 3 are number 3 Disco Elysium, number 2 Baba Is You, number 1 Fire Emblem Three Houses. Holy fuck! I really would not have seen this going this way. Seen it coming.
I didn't think Baba Is You would make it this
No.
far. I thought Baba Is You would have been eliminated in like the first round.
I feel
I did see Disco Elysium going pretty far.
Yeah.
So I did see Fire Emblem making it pretty far as well.
yeah.
Well, we really
I didn't think it would win.
stumbled
but
into stacking the deck of who participated in this recording, unfortunately.
Right, like when we all unanimously picked Fire Emblem in the first round, that was a sign it was going to go pretty far.
Yeah.
So congrats again to Fire Emblem Three Houses for making it all the way to the top. As for you listeners, if you would like to keep up to date with the podcast, you can follow us on our website at avocadogamescast.wordpress.com, where we post each episode along with a link dump that fact checks stuff we say. I don't know how much we're going to have to fact check today.
Yeah, very
But
opinion driven.
maybe we will, so we'll see. You can also subscribe to us on iTunes or Google Play. Just search for Avocado Gamescast. And we've been talking a lot about the Avocado, the community that we all like to spend time with and chat about our nonsense. So you make sure to check us out at the-avocado.org.
I know we
All
all got to get going, but I just want to say thank you so much for this. This was so much fun. I hope y'all enjoyed it as much as I did.
Yeah, I actually had a lot of fun. This was a fun debut for me.
Yeah, it was an interesting
Thank you, DW,
format.
for
Yeah.
Thank you, DW, for joining us for the first time, and I hope that we get to see you come back. And obviously to Demyx and Bones,
you.
also
Yeah.
Thanks.
love you to join us again. And to our listeners, we'll see you next time. Hopefully, I'm not going to finish that thought because I was going to say something like really negative and dark, and I realized who needs that right now. Thank you to our listeners. Please join us next time for whatever nonsense we cook up. Bye
Take
now.
care.
Bye.